We have an expression in prize fighting. Everyone has a plan until they've been hit. Well, my friend, you've just been hit. The getting up is up to you.
Oh, that is The Ghost in the Darkness.
Yes, it is. Charles Remington, played lovingly by Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Whom I always get confused with Martin Sheen.
Yes.
All the time.
Same. I think everyone does.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
It's gonna go on. It's gonna be on their epitaph.
Well, he's like a lot younger than he currently is, in that movie, and he had facial hair, he had a long hair, and so I was like, is this Martin Sheen or is this Michael Douglas? I can't tell.
I don't know how much he's aged relative to aging.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like in this one, he looks much younger, but he's still
old.
50.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm like looking at his face, and I was like, okay, here's the thing, and we'll talk about it. But if he came in and I was dealing with lions and that was old guy, I'd be like, oh yeah, I got the expert at doing this, but I definitely don't feel great about his dexterity doing it.
Right.
Like
he's gonna have to take some Tylenol before he leaps over trees and scours the jungle for lions.
You hey man, I know it's not a young man's game, but you sure you still up for this?
You want to take a guess at how old he is currently?
That's the thing. I don't know because that movie came out 35, 37 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, thinking about Quantumania, we have a reference as to what he looks
like. What I'm
like.
saying is it came out 37 years ago. He looks the same now that he did in that movie to me. So he had a crow's feet. He had his whole face thing was going. I'm like, I can't. If I had to guess, I'm thinking in his 80s.
With the picture I'm looking at him now, he's clean shaven, and I think when he has facial hair, it's harder to tell. But when he's clean shaven, it's a little easier. He's 78 years old.
Yeah, so I was close.
Yeah, you were pretty much there. But yeah, we got some movies on the docket to talk about. Mm-hmm. But first, there's been a lot happening recently.
Has there?
Oh yes, there has. Because we got some news things to cover.
Let's do it.
Some newsy woozies.
We need to get Channel 4 chopper.
Oh yeah,
Kyle Yates,
Brian
McClain.
in the Sunshine Chopper.
Yeah, it's just Brian. He's got fucking sound effects.
We can call it the Sunset Chopper. That way we don't get sued.
There we go. I like that.
Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of a writer's strike.
Heard about that.
Happening.
Haven't yet looked into it, but it sounds like it's going to be messy.
Yeah.
Who are you siding with?
Gee, Mac, I don't know. I'm a little undecided at this point. Yeah. No, so this is pretty much the biggest one that we've had, I think, since 2008.
I remember that one too.
Yeah, I was pretty young, and that was when I was really into the TV show Chuck with Zachary Levi, and that was when Heroes was coming out, and NBC primetime channels had all their scripted television shows that were pretty much on hold because of the writer's strike.
Yep.
And I remember people talking about Heroes specifically because that show, I think, suffered quite a bit because of the writer's strike. It was very promising in its first season, and then it just kind of tanked after.
I remember I don't know if it was you or another friend talking about it, that's where it fell off at, and it was upsetting because it was actually a good show before all that happened, and it just lost all its momentum.
Mm-hmm. And then Chuck was being threatened with cancellation after every single season, and then they kept renewing it because there was such a huge amount of fandom with that show, that they just kept it going. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I just remember the quality being very up and down throughout the entire show.
Believe it.
Yeah, but with this specific writer's strike, it seems like it's going to take a while before it's ever resolved, or if they decide to give in, because it seems like there's a huge difference between the one in 2008 and this one in terms of streaming services. Because I think that's a big to-do with this specific writer's strike. So basically what it is the Writers Guild of America, and I'm going to break it down for people who might not know what we're talking about.
I'm going to sit right there with them.
So the Writers Guild of America is asking for compensation and better wages in terms of working with the major motion picture companies. So it's not every single writer in every single production company that's having this dispute, but it's a good majority of what gets put out in the mainstream in movies and television specifically, because I feel like television is the most heavily affected with these strikes.
Yes.
And the corporations and those who represent them didn't want to meet their demands, and so the Writers Guild of America and everybody who is associated with the Writers Guild of America is, because they're a part of the union, they're legally obligated to partake in the strike and to not work with those companies.
Wow.
During the duration of this strike. And so that's where you get a lot of TV shows being delayed. There's a lot of speculation as to what shows are going to get renewed, what shows are going to get canceled. Kind of a almost similar situation to the 2008 one. There has been writer strikes in the past, but you only maybe hear about those a little bit. Like, they're not many people hear about those ones because those ones have been resolved fairly quickly.
Right.
Like, every once in a while you might come up with an article that says, oh, there's a writer strike happening, and it was back in like something like 2016. But then a week later you don't hear about it because those issues were resolved between the two parties.
I remember, I don't know if it was 2008, there was one where it might have impacted the Academy Awards. And I remember everyone kind of talking about, well, what are they going to do? Who's going to come up with their jokes? All that stuff. So, but I feel like that's the one I was thinking about, and I'm guessing that one got resolved fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's the biggest one since the 2008 one. And yeah, there's a lot more to consider with the streaming services. There's some different speculations as to, like, is this not just going to affect scripted television, but is this going to affect like journalism as a whole? Like, I don't know, it's very wide reaching, it seems. So there's some more development still to be had with it, but I'll keep an eye out for anybody who is interested in that.
I read a couple, I didn't really dive into it because I think my own, whatever you want to call it, was like it would get resolved quickly. I think yesterday or the day before, someone posted an article and said this doesn't look like this is like any end in sight. Yeah. So, I guess it'll be interesting, and it's not going to really impact movies. If I had to guess, I feel like I don't want to say freelancers. I mean, obviously you got your people they have to be a part of something. Yeah.
I think the goal of what and I'm just reading about this right now, the goal of what the production companies, or I should say the Writers Guild of America, is that the production companies are going to need those writers back for the types of programs that they want to make. Yeah. Kind of like not really holding everything hostage, because that makes it sound like the writers are the bad guys, but essentially that's kind of what's happening.
No, it's the same thing whether it's a strike in baseball, football, basketball, writing. Like at some point talent isn't being recognized, and they understand that they're being undervalued. And it's all about, what sucks is that you get into the leverage game. So I'm curious as to if they start getting out, like, how would they get out leverage if you just take out compensation, which is why they might have more of a footing on this than they would typically or normally have. And if you look at your product getting spread out more through other, what do you want to call it, like faculties or faculties, whatever you want to say about the streaming services, those production companies have a little bit more attached to it than the writers do per se, because if they're churning out X amount of scripts for a salaried position, you churn out one more script that you intend to, your value goes down by X amount. It's not like for everything that they produce, they get, I don't know the compensation, but, I would have to say that if they go giddy up, you can't say throw another carrot on that freaking stick. This is the only thing that you're working with. So with them, production companies being more spread out now and delivering their products, across different sort of streaming platforms, they might have a little bit more say in this. Yeah. And 2016, I guess the last time, it sounded like that might have been the last time.
I was just ballparking a year, basically. But.
Right. I think there was one that was after 2008, because I remember the Academy Awards that they were talking about being impacted, but streaming services haven't really gotten to the stature that they're at currently. It's because everything can be streamed, and you can get access for $5. Yeah. Unlimited content, but more so than what it was in 2016. I think it wasn't until they enacted the one act that took away. It happened in 2018, where they took away, kind of, they were breaking up some of I don't want to say monopolies, but like television, DirecTV.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you'd have HBO Max, all those built into the cost of the product. And they've said, well, we want to be able to separate ourselves and put out our own,
Yeah, okay.
You remember, I don't know.
Kind of like tied to cable a
Yeah,
little bit more.
there was, I don't exactly remember what it was, but there was a fear that it would impact consumerism and that it would drive up a lot of prices if all these people had, they got into a free market and said, this is what I'm going to charge for this product. So like instead of having cable and watching ESPN and paying your X amount of dollars for however many you wanted, ESPN could branch off and say, cable, you're going to have to pay us if you want us to put it on here, but also we're going to be able to put out our own content for X amount of dollars. And I think that's like why you've seen like a lot of that stuff, prices have gone down drastically, because I think they've realized that if they $5-10 is enough, especially if it's like I have like, I was just talking to Jasmine about, I have so much shit that I pay for that I don't even know that I have access to. Mm-hmm. That's what they kind of want. So I wish I could remember what the act was called.
Yeah.
But now that they're seeing this, the writers obviously know that if they're producing this much more, maybe that they're looking and saying, hey, and I'm always curious as to how the stuff goes. Like, what are the production companies going to do? At some point, they gotta bend a little bit.
Yeah, eventually they, I think, will. But I think for right now, we're going to see a uptick in reality shows or like unscripted TV.
Sure.
In place of normal scripted content.
Yeah.
And obviously there's still going to be stuff that's coming out. There's some stuff that was renewed before the strike. There was some stuff that writers had, signed contracts for that they are obligated to do. So it's not like we're going to be out of scripted TV or movie content. It's just there's going to be a little bit less of it.
Yeah, and we'll see a blip at some point where we'll obviously, kind of like COVID. Mm-hmm. Watching those movies in the post-production where you can obviously tell that they had the rules put in place. Mm-hmm. After like you have like half the movie's good and then half the movie you can tell people are keeping a distance and they've separated some characters and so you'll probably see a little bit of that. But I guess it depends on how long this goes, because eventually it's like lag in a rope. At some point it catches up and you definitely see where that lag's at, and depending on how much force is behind it, you might have a small lag or you could see a big lag,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We'll see what happens. And it gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that we have a plethora of media already that exists.
Yeah.
So whether or not new stuff is being made at the rate that it used to be made at, it doesn't really matter too much because we have so much already.
Independent movies, smaller production houses. I mean, if you're not a part of the guild, I mean, I don't know exactly. Like, I don't think movies would be impacted that much because there are so many scripts that probably get turned down daily.
Oh yeah,
So and you're not dealing people coming off the streets handing you a script, hoping that they hit it. So like movies, there might be a difference in terms of the writing that we see in the movies or the quality of the characters, but like I think that stuff will still be coming out.
Oh yeah, no, TV is definitely way more affected by it because typically with movies, especially the ones that are generally bigger, you don't have many writers on them. It's usually like a director writer working together on it, or it's the director himself or herself writing the script. Mm-hmm. And with television, a lot of different episodes are written by different people.
Right.
So a lot of the writers for TV, it's a little more reliant on them than with movies.
Yes.
I mean, take John Wick 4. The original writer, Derek Kolstad, of all three movies, they just replaced him with a couple of people who had already been in the industry for longer than he had been writing scripts for movies. Like,
still a part of the guild, though?
I'm not sure about that, but my point being that movies, it's a little less of a indication of the writer's strike than with television.
Yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm. And it's like a lot of the events that you'll see too. There's, I think, and it could just be maybe some of the big network channels, NBC, ABC, whatever, PBS.
PBS. Oh no, I won't be able to watch Dragon Tales the way I want to. Fuck. God damn it, I need to know what happens with Zach and Wheezy.
Also, I will say this too. Just being part of a guild feels so medieval.
I know, it's like the Thieves Guild back in the medieval times.
Right. Like, I feel like you said, holding him hostage. I think just telling people you're part of a guild already puts you behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Join our guild right now. Fight up against the corporation. Yeah. We have to take down the enemy. Speaking of the enemy, I got some news about the Flash.
Oh man, dude!
Did you hear about this?
No, I haven't. We've been talking, like we've seen these commercials, and every time that commercial pops up or the trailer, I think of Ezra Miller every time I see him screaming at like a lady who's holding a pea jar, that he wants her purse chained up in a basement. Like I can't get past.
Yeah,
he's still in this thing.
I always think about that video where he's with a fan and she's like clearly wanting to be near him, and he just pushes her onto the ground really aggressively.
Yeah,
like it's fucking nuts. But apparently, one of the crew members on the Flash movie isn't worried about it too much at all, because Paul Austerberry, who also worked on The Shape of Water, who's a production designer for The Flash,
cool, said
that the Flash movie is so good that people are going to watch it and forget about Ezra Miller's crimes because the movie will be so good.
Yeah, so enriching.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch The Flash and Michael Keaton, and I'm gonna think to myself, wow, I barely remember the time that Ezra Miller assaulted people in a bar in Hawaii.
I would be shocked.
What a weird comment to make, like,
dude. It's the same thing if they, and I'm not. The Jonathan Majors thing coming out, like, we'll see. Mm-hmm. Like, I've always been, you get a fair trial. I want to hear the evidence coming out. And I think sometimes that there's a little bit more of a gut punch reaction to things, especially at the beginning while we're still transitioning into a new kind of ideology, if you will. And it's the right way to go. But anytime you move into like a new spot, like there's always that wave of things where it's just like, you have to make a decision now as opposed to waiting. And this guy, Ezra Miller, is not like the Jonathan Majors thing at all.
Not
like,
at all.
That's why. And
not one bit.
Like, they would have to say, if they kept Majors on, though, they'd have to say those things so that people, because everyone's thinking it.
Well, but it's like,
how do you?
Also, Jonathan Majors is very like, I guess there's a video of like him in a cab, like where he's beating up his girlfriend or something.
Yeah,
but he doesn't have a history like Ezra Miller does. Like,
I'm still not gonna go out and vouch for the guy. I'm waiting to see like kind of what happens.
And that's the important thing to take away from this is that, like, Jonathan Majors especially, it's important to wait for how this thing plays out. I don't like jumping to conclusions typically.
No.
With Ezra Miller, it's a little bit easier because there's video evidence of not just one thing he does.
It was like he's been tried.
He's been charged with crimes.
Yeah, like this isn't like happening now. This happened a couple of years ago, and it's already been like, hey, yep,
it's been happening for a few years.
Did this
ongoing?
And we're gonna put you on probation. This is your punishment. So, like, if he's a new man, if he comes out and is like, he's doing charity work, and all of a sudden you find out that he was just going through some shit, and like, it's like, all right, you did your time.
Yeah.
You did what you're supposed to do. And obviously you've learned and grew from this. I haven't seen anything that says that. It's like all of a sudden he's kidnapped people in this vacation home, and now the Flash is coming out. Like, there hasn't been time for my wounds to heal, and for me to be like, this movie's gonna be so great, I'm gonna forget that he fucking did this stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget that he put a bullet in a baby's mouth with that family that he held hostage in Vermont or some shit.
Yeah, right. Or the Hawaiian thing where he got super hammered and was like
throwing chairs, like, beating people up.
Oh man, I can't believe how great the Flash was. Like, wrongfully accused.
Oh yeah, he's like, not guilty.
Yeah,
just the judge goes and sees the movie, acquits him of everything.
Judge is crying watching it. He's just like, I've made a horrible mistake.
It's like, I can see now what kind of person you can be.
Yeah, like, I don't know. You have to say that stuff though. I don't know, dude.
I believe in seventh chances.
You know what happened was they got into a freaking that guy got a microphone put in front of him, and the directors walked by and slipped him $100 bill. It was like, say the right thing.
It's just weird that he would bring up Ezra Miller's crimes at all, whether or not the movie would make people look at him in a better light, because I feel like you just want to not touch it in any way. Like, just sweep it under the rug if you can.
I don't know.
Like, just brush by it. Just forget about Ezra Miller and just focus on the movie itself.
Well, I think that there is, and I used to be of that vein, but I do think there is, when you can bring something like this to light and just put it, what he should have did was put it in fucking normal terms. Obviously, he's like, this has happened. Ezra's grown from this situation, and we stood by his side seeing that he's grown from this. Now, whether or not he has or hasn't, we're not the fucking judge nor jury, you know? But, like...
Yeah, they could spin it however they want.
Yeah, and I think growth is always the easiest one to go with, like, and say, yes, they've learned and they're growing from it, because that's the best thing to do, but then you have to see it. But it buys you time to say that, because, like, you say it...
It's better than saying people will forget about his crimes.
Dude, like, that's like some, like, a NBA or NFL or NHL guy that goes out and, like, gets caught with massive amounts of coke. You found out he's dealing it to guys on the team. They go, well, it's not enough to where we have to kick him off the team, but, like, at the same token, we're trying to, like, distance ourselves. And then the coach comes out, it's like he's going to score 6 goals, and you'll forget about all these heinous crimes that he's committed.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It almost reminds me of the Kanye West thing where he said, I like Jonah Hill in 21 Jump Street, therefore I like the Jews again.
He said that?
Yeah, he...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That was like the last thing he said before he's been like radio silent for the past month, which, I mean, you know, I'm not going to complain about, but
no one is. And what happened was his agent started feeding him like horse tranquilizers.
yeah, and then Kanye has not been seen in public since.
Oh my God. Well, now that you say that, I was like, yeah, remember the last time we talked about him, he went on his like anti-Semite rant, and
yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, his very elongated anti-Semite rant.
Yes,
but yeah, that's the happenings with the Flash, Ezra Miller. The controversy and all that's around it just kind of makes me want to see the movie even more.
There you go.
It's maybe almost having like a reverse Streisand effect in a way.
That's on you, man. I vacuum myself into all this, and I just watch the trailer. It's like whatever is going on, these people decided to work with them. I'm not gonna put down this movie because thousands of people have helped out on this because one guy's an idiot, you know. But and at the same token, I don't want to go out there and go like, man, like that thing was fucking awful. Can you believe that these idiots like, you know, put their fucking baggie on this guy and said,
they put
up.
all their cards on the Ezra Miller Ezra Miller table.
Yes, like
my mouth was going faster than my brain, much like the Flash.
Not bad.
Thanks.
Not bad.
That's a 7 out of 10 joke.
Damn, what movie? Still better than Rain of Fire.
Oh yeah.
We'll see. I've seen that trailer now like 8 times.
Oh yeah, just in the theaters.
Keeps getting more and more elaborate, and it's funny now because I'm like watching. I'm like, did they just take Spider-Man and say like, oh, this is a neat idea?
They're doing the No Way Home thing where it's a lot of crossover stuff within the universe, and then they're doing callbacks to previous superhero movies.
Which, once again, DC, get an original fucking thought.
Right, exactly.
Like,
it's very much like they're copying No Way Home.
They have no idea what they're doing. You know what it is? Like, they're mind fucked so bad that they're just copying them now, and that like it's like we're not doing it, but we are doing it. Everyone knows we're doing it, but we'll still play fucking, you know, arrogant or ignorant and say we're not doing that.
It's like, no, this is our original thing. Michael Keaton isn't Willem Dafoe.
What would be even better, though, is if we found out, this would be the best, if you found out that script got written in like 2009, and then Spider-Man wrote
Marvel
their script.
Got a hold of it.
Yeah, found it. We'll beat them to the punch, and they're doing so bad that they couldn't execute when Marvel was executing. Mm-hmm. So now they're back, and they're like, we did do it first. We did.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we'll have to. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. But yeah. I know for a fact that people are just going to see it because Michael Keaton's Batman. Like, I've heard people in the theaters say, that's the only reason I'm seeing that movie. Michael Keaton. I gotta go see him again. Yeah. He's old as fuck and he's in the suit, but I gotta go see him.
My boy when he's in there for 4 minutes.
I'll go suck that Michael Keaton cock all day long.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
Oh, man. What theater? Was this during Beau Is Afraid?
It might have been, yeah. That's a great segue, but before we get into that, I want to touch on this real quick.
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers movie made $1 billion to no surprise to anybody. because
The new one.
the new one.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I was about to say, are we like legacy going on here?
Yeah. The cult classic status shot up so much it made $1 billion. It's crazy.
Like you said, they banned the DVDs.
They banned them to release them to like $800,000 per disc or whatever, and then people ate that shit up. No, the new animated Mario Brothers movie made $1 billion, which I don't think surprised anybody, honestly. Like, I knew this movie was going to make gangbusters.
Yeah, it's the safest version that you can do, and they knocked it out of the park.
And it's a very popular intellectual property that almost everybody on the planet who has access to entertainment knows. Mm-hmm. So
it's very. I'm telling you right now. When I went to see Beau Is Afraid, I got a phone call from P. So I was talking to him, and I told him I was at the movie theater. He goes, "Are you watching the new Super Mario Brothers movie?"
you're like, yes.
Like he asked. No, I was like, that's not it. But it's not something you're gonna see.
It's a Mario Odyssey of sorts, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess you're who it's striking with and who knows of Mario. Like it's
not surprising.
No,
Not in the slightest.
I don't know. $1 billion is a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna. So like sitting here talking about it, I'm going, yeah. But like when you said $1 billion, that's a lot of money.
It is.
You know, that's a lot of money.
It's climbing the charts. I think it's a near the new Star Wars sequel, because like I think what was it, The Force Awakens is like the highest grossing Star Wars sequel movie, and it's nipping at that heels right now. So
yeah,
it's getting there. It's climbing up the ladder. Speaking of ladder, ladder rhymes with Aster. And Ari Aster made a new movie.
Yeah,
and it's called Beau Is Afraid.
Let's go.
Yes. So
excited to talk about it. And if you haven't seen it, skip ahead.
Yeah. Spoilers for Beau Is Afraid. We're going to be spoiling the shit out of this movie.
I have to.
Mm-hmm. There's no way you can't.
Yes.
Without
Agreed.
describing anything in this movie. So
so it's very true.
So basically, it's a simple plot. A man with anxiety, played by Joaquin Phoenix. His name is Beau. He lives in this really awful, shitty apartment in this really awful, shitty area with a bunch of schizophrenic, crazy people. And he gets a call from his mother, and he's going to go visit her. But then something happens to where he can't go visit her in time, and so he has to make his way to go see his mother. And that's the plot.
Literally
the movie.
is. I couldn't believe it watching it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this movie originally was called Disappointments Boulevard. I think I like that title better than Beau Is Afraid.
Yeah, but you know what? I think Beau Is Afraid is very apropos to it.
Oh, like, yeah, it's definitely what the movie is.
If you said Disappointment Boulevard, I would have a hard time kind of like a very simple concept. Mm-hmm. Even though, I mean, however you want to view it, because it is a simple concept, but the way that they fucking dovetail off this thing's insane.
Oh yeah.
But like, you know, Beau Is Afraid to me, I'm like, all right, I know what I'm getting into. Mm-hmm. So I like Beau. I like Beau Is Afraid. I liked it even after the film. I was like, the title makes even more sense.
Mm-hmm. It does make sense, and I'm not saying it's a bad title,
right.
But me personally, Disappointments Boulevard would have been, I don't know, a little bit better.
Dude, do your hipster thing. Get a shirt and have, Disappointment Boulevard, and then just, the walking. And then people are like, what is it? It's kind of like Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I need to find like a piece of merch with Disappointments Boulevard already printed on it.
Yes.
And then I'll definitely have hit the niche market with that.
It'll be right next to the Eagles winning the last Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, you just have to go to third world countries for that.
Oh, that's right. Well, that's what... You go to Africa and someone's wearing a Disappointments Boulevard. Yeah. Like you just do the double take and point.
I'd be like, how much do you want for that shirt?
Oh my God, yeah.
I don't care what size, just give it to me. Yeah, no, it was directed, written by Ari Aster. Had you watched
Hereditary?
Yeah, Hereditary and Midsommar?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen, I was ready for this.
Filmography. You were ready for the cock and balls that were in this movie?
No, not necessarily that. The one-eyed monster really threw me off. Yeah.
The monster in the attic.
Yeah. No, I mean, like it was kind of dark comedy. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, all right, I mean, after having seen some of Ari Aster's stuff, I don't exactly know what a dark comedy would be to him.
Yeah. It's a lot more comedic than his other movies, which are
God, yes.
they're more along the lines of just straight horror movies. This has horror elements in it, but
yeah, see, that's what I was like. I don't even know. It's more thriller than horror.
I wouldn't call it a horror movie. Yeah,
no, I thought when I was watching it, I was like, if anything, I was thinking it was supposed to be like a comedy, but I like.
Yeah, it's very kind of surrealist.
Oh God,
it almost has a very similar tone to I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's
That's
just a little more dark than that movie is. A little more edgy, maybe.
I don't
is the word for it.
Well, here's the thing.
I mean, I don't remember
like,
I'm Thinking of Ending Things having cock and balls in it.
Yeah, but that doesn't. The guy's contemplating suicide and he's going down where he fucked up in life. Whereas this one's more of like a, nature versus nurture aspect, if you will. So I both of them psychologically are dark. Mm-hmm. I would say committing suicide's darker than this, but at the same token, looking back on life and going through, all I have to say is I don't know the relationship Ari Aster has with his mom, but this definitely felt like a therapist thing, and like he was writing this as he was going to therapy.
Oh yeah, this is one of those movies where, and I think it almost feels like kind of a trend now, where a director will make a movie and it seems a little bit more apparent to me that it's a lot more kind of like for them, like it's a little self-indulgent.
Yes.
It's a little more like for the director, not necessarily whatever audience he's making it for.
Yes.
And obviously people are going to like this movie and attach themselves to it, but at the same time, you get movies like Bardo, you get movies like Babylon or The Fabelmans. It's like a lot of these movies are made because the director wanted to make it for himself, not necessarily because he had a specific audience in mind when he was making it.
I would 100. Yes, and you will gravitate as long as you're creative enough. I think I had to applaud him for it, because I was like, very hard to take some of those deep-rooted psychological thoughts and put them on film and convey a story or even what scenes of what you're thinking in a creative manner. Mm-hmm. And he did a really good job with that. So
yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I didn't enjoy it as much as Hereditary. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than Midsommar, but yeah. To me, this is one of those films where I could watch it again and have a totally different opinion the second time watching it, because there's things about it that I really loved and I thought were super creative, and I just loved the entire kind of sequence of events that would happen. Mm-hmm. And then there are things about it where it kind of lost me at points. And I guess we can dive into those.
Sure.
But, I mean, yeah, no, I really love how it looks. Joaquin Phoenix kills it. He's one of my favorite actors working today, and I think he plays a really good neurotic, like mama's boy to a detriment. Like he's got like crippling anxiety to the point where he cannot even make the simplest decision for himself.
Yes.
And I don't know, it speaks well to the writing of his character, I think, in that it kind of makes you think about how much of this is his mom's fault and how much of this is Beau's responsibility to make his life better for himself.
The Winston Churchill. I read this, that they had this on a poster. I'm glad you said responsibility. Mm-hmm. Keep going on.
Oh yeah,
I got to look up this Winston Churchill quote.
No worries.
Because it was on the Brown Recluse.
Oh, was it in the movie?
Yeah, it was a poster, and that recluse that was in there of, be careful, if it bites you, you'll die. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But there's a Winston Churchill quote. I'm gonna look it up. So
okay, I'll just continue then. But yeah, no, I
already got it.
Oh, okay, you beat me to the punch.
Yes. So you said how much of it is the mom versus how much of it's on Beau's responsibility to accept. On this, I think it was on this, but it was in one of the posters in his apartments. The price of greatness is responsibility. Mm-hmm. So it ties very hand in hand to what you're saying about Beau having to, take responsibility for his own actions.
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that the movie doesn't feel like it explicitly tells you that that's what it's about. You're just able to tell through the writing and the performances.
Yeah.
There's some things about it that aren't so subtle. Obviously, it's very like inspired by sort of a Greek myth. It feels very like Oedipus Rex in a lot of different ways. But, for what it is, I enjoy how well crafted it feels. And it definitely feels like the characters in this movie and the acting behind them really carry it forward. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And Yeah, no, all the other performances I really liked. It's funny because I was talking to a friend about this, and there's a few people who think that the kid version of Beau was just a CGI actor.
Dude, he looks like Pinocchio.
They didn't think he was real. He looks so like polished and airbrushed and like almost too perfect.
I think it played. So one of the things that's interesting is the narrator in this and who's actually directing the story or whose conscience we're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it Beau or is it the mom? And that's a funny reason that you say that is because the mom wanted Beau to be perfect. She talks about how she made the perfect child, how she wanted him to be. And then you look at that kid, and I'm not judging, but like you said, airbrush polish, like that was the most probably perfect version of a being you could put out there, you know, like in terms of like, you know, angles and I mean, well, however you want to view
facial
it.
structure.
Yeah, like because I was in the same boat when that kid popped down there. I was like, "Is this Pinocchio?" Like he looked like, you know, the new Pinocchio movie.
Yeah,
like he kind of looked like that thing. And I was like, I was like, I don't know what this kid's going on here.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a purposeful artistic decision to dichotomy that kid with who Joaquin Phoenix turns out to be.
Yes,
which is very disheveled, ill-fitting clothes, is a slob, looks really unhealthy.
Oh my God, when he gets hit by
hairline.
the car and he's got bruises and scabs all over him, he looks like a junkie.
He like they make him look like such a mess of a human being, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was done purposefully to essentially like be a dichotomy for what that kid looks like.
I that's my guess on it, and that's actually because we just talked about it, and he said, I was like, oh shit, like I would have to imagine that that's somewhat of what he was going for.
I think so. I absolutely think so.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite parts of this movie were the first hour of it. I really loved when he's just in his apartment and he's dealing with all the crazy people in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
it was effectively anxiety inducing for me enough to really kind of immerse myself in it, but it was also, I think, humorous enough and surreal enough to make me go like, where's this movie going? What's the next step? And it kept me interested, which is, I think, a big plus that this movie has going for it, is I didn't feel like it was repetitive or like I didn't. Some people say that it's too long, like it's nearly 3 hours. I think that the runtime feels more justified in this movie than something like Bardo or Babylon, where
I would agree.
Those are very kind of similarly purposefully made movies for the director, but this one feels like it has a little bit more going for it.
And with it being like a 5-act structure, like
for real.
Oh, I'm like I thought that it was each act kind of represented something of where he was going towards, you know, the means towards the end. So the sum of the parts equal the whole. You know, I thought that each act broken up like that was going somewhere. So I was always, for me, I was more so inclined of like, all right, what act, if you will, that I like more than the next, or you know, what are we learning more about Beau as we go? And I didn't really. It wasn't until the third act, really, until I figured out like, oh shit, it's the mom. You know, the whole time before that, for me, like you said, I didn't really feel ever like anxiety induced because I'm like, all right, we got an unreliable narrator here. Obviously, this is the world how he interprets it, and you already know that he's got anxiety from the therapist talking about him going forward. And I love that he goes, you have to take water with these pills. I just started, dude, I laughed at some really weird moments.
Yeah.
You know, where there was a couple times where people were chuckling with me. But like that was one of them. I was like, "Oh, he's so fucked."
Oh yeah,
like
you just know that it's gonna go wrong for him.
Yeah.
Like every single situation he finds himself in, if it can turn out the worst way possible, it does.
And that's the unreliable narration and where he's kind of at in life with his conscience. You know, obviously, you know, this isn't the world that he's truly living in, but this is how he sees the world.
Yeah, that fear and anxiety can make the world around you seem more dangerous and be a lot more fear-inducing.
Yes, and I liked it and I didn't like it. You know, to me, the first scene with him in the apartment, that one, I was like, all right, I got it. You know, like that's the only part of the film I think personally for me took too long.
See, I think I had almost kind of the opposite experience where for me it was easy to feel that fear and anxiety in those first moments because it was still mostly grounded in some level of realism. And then as the movie further and further gets along, the more surreal it becomes with a lot of its elements. And I think at that point is where it started to lose me, at least for being able to relate to the fear of the character and the anxiety that he feels. And at that point, I was just interested in where the movie was going, just its story wise.
The curiosity is 100% there, because the it's funny too, because like if you really think about the inciting incident is that he tells his mom he can't go and visit her like that, but it was such a throwaway thing for me. Like I was like, oh, he can't go, and I was like, I don't know if this is the world around him with the anxiety-induced, the crippling fear that he has, and that this is just impacting him for one other thing in life, and then you start to learn more about what the mom's done to him and where it's gotten to, that this is, so I started really gearing up more so once we were getting towards that element of it. In the beginning, I was like, literally all it took for me was to see him sprinting to the door past the drug guy. I was dying laughing at that, because like it is just a slow motion dead speed, and then all of a sudden
he just emerges from the fog and just is like just absolutely Sonic the Hedgehog sprinting. I want to take a clip of that scene and put Sonic music over it, because it's so goddamn, it's like funny, but it's also like you kind of get why he's fucking rushing for it,
Yeah. See, that's what for me, I'm yes and no. Yes, I get it, but no, because that's not how it works, But I don't have some of that, or I can relate a little bit to it at certain points, but just like living in the city and being around that, like I've never lived in that world, so like I don't know if I'd react that same way. So I mean, it's hard for me to. It's hard for me to sit there and put myself in his shoes, because we're in a surrealistic world with an unreliable narrator, and you really have no idea what's going on around him.
A lot of it is like very purposefully exaggerated from his point of view. I mean, you have a cop in a very obvious cop uniform talking to a very obvious prostitute like, hey, what are you doing later? Meanwhile, this guy down the street is gouging this other man's eyes out like 20 feet away from him.
Yeah.
And like all these people are like dying and like suffering and all this shit.
The naked birthday basher guy that's killed his 15th victim.
They just have his swinging cock and balls on TV. There's some stuff in this movie that was just so bonkers that I really commend that it went there.
That's what I'm in this.
I love a lot of the stuff that they did in this movie.
He didn't hold back, and for an Ari Aster film, this felt very Ari Aster.
Yeah, he made the movie he wanted to make. Yes. It didn't feel like A24 gave him free reign to do whatever he wanted. They just said,
dude, if you're having problems with your mom, fucking get it on script and let's giddy up.
It's like, we'll give you $35 million for your therapy session. Sure.
Oh my God. So you went and saw this at the cinema, right?
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thank you, because I got fucked.
Oh.
Well, hold on. I don't mean it like that.
Is this like in relation to the movie?
No, not
very
that
in line with the subject matter.
No. Me and the lovely Jasmine, we got to go on a date night, and we got some food, and we got to go out to Grand Rapids. So like that wasn't it. I was just more talking about we had to go to Grand Rapids. Like we could have did it here.
Oh,
but like
I see.
We had to drive to Grand Rapids. But I was telling her, because she had to go away Friday, and she was coming back, and then we had to make another road trip, so, and I felt kind of bad. I was like, I don't mind going to Grand Rapids, but like we've been traveling and doing all this stuff, so like, and then I'm like, Kyle just saw this movie a fucking week ago. How is this not here?
Yeah, I think it's mostly to do with Guardians 3 being in theaters now.
Wow.
Because there's so many run times and like show times that they have to show for that movie.
So they went through their projections and went out.
The same thing happened with Infinity Pool, because I was going to see that movie, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp came out like a week later.
Look at Marvel just fucking things up with their shitty movies.
I know, right?
Oh.
I guess we'll see how Guardians 3 is, though. Because I've been hearing good things about that. My friends told me that it's really, really good.
Yeah, I got a buddy that's wants to go see it, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm tapped out. Anyways, we don't have to go down there.
Anyways, that's a conversation for another day.
So that's what happened to me with Beau Is Afraid. So, but it ended up being a really nice time, and
that's good. Yeah, because I had an almost too immersive experience with this movie. I want to talk about that for a bit. So I went this was probably a week after the movie came out, so it was still at the cinema near us, and I went and I saw it. and it was in theater 16, and it's like, oh, this movie's only been out for a week. That's not a great sign. It's already in theater 16, like way towards the back of the cinema. So I get in there, and there are 3 other dudes by themselves, like me. You know, I'm like, this is interesting.
Wait, hold on. Like, you say they didn't go as a group. There's 4 guys in this theater.
There's 4 guys
sitting in, including
me. We're all by ourselves.
Okay, that's what I was. Yeah.
Yes. So there's a dude kind of more towards the front, not in the recliners, but like the closest you can get to the front without being in the recliners. He was fine. Like, he kept to himself. He stayed quiet. He was just minding his own business. Like, cool. There was a guy who sat kind of behind me a couple rows, like off towards the side, and he had a baseball hat and a COVID mask, so you really couldn't see what his face looked like. And about an hour through the movie, I start hearing... And because of the nature of the movie, I couldn't tell if it was coming from the movie or if like someone had actually fallen asleep.
Very silent, like not a lot of sound editing going on.
Yeah. So I turned around, I was like, what is going on? And like, sure enough, the dude's got his head slumped over with his eyes closed. And like every time he snores, he like kind of like, ooh, hunches up a bit. Like, this dude fell asleep to the movie. He was not feeling it.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily blame him for, but it's like, all right, maybe you should go home. And he did leave like after an hour and a half into this movie, which is the halfway mark, by the way.
Yeah.
The movie's long as fuck. And then finally, this guy comes in, and he's kind of an older gentleman, maybe like, I don't know, early mid-40s. And he's got his hood up, and he's got a big old glass of beer in his hand that he got from the concessions.
We hope.
I hope he didn't sneak in a whole glass of beer, like an open container. And then he's, when you go in the theater, obviously you have your assigned seat that you pick. But once you get in there, it's pretty much up to you where you want to sit, especially this guy who came in 2 minutes into the movie starting. You can choose whatever seat you want. This guy, for some fucking reason, chose to sit 2 seats away from me.
Oh, nice.
Out of all the seats in there. So I could hear everything he did, which I think he was pre-gaming it before he went into the theater because he already seemed drunk. When he was there, he's just like in his seat, moving around, like rustling with himself. He's like, just weird noises. And he slurped down his beer, and he got up like 3 more times to go get more beer throughout the movie. I'm surprised they didn't cut him off because this guy was clearly fucking hammered, and like he audibly belched like probably an hour into the movie, like just making the loudest cartoonish sounding burp I had ever heard in real life. And I could just smell the alcohol on him like every single time he came back with another glass of beer. So finally, the last time he got up, I just got up and moved away.
I was about to say, you're allowed to do that.
Yes.
You probably, next time this happens to you, I would say be the bigger man and just get up and let him claim that area and then just go somewhere else because you had a whole theater too.
I know, but I had a little bit of Beau anxiety in my head. Whereas I said to myself, if I get up while he's near me and move away, he might like say like, oh, what, you don't want to sit by me or what? Like, I didn't want him starting any shit, so I had to wait till he got up again, and then I moved down.
This movie's really funny too because like there's these things where you're like, you kind of project yourself and you're like, all right, am I good there? Would I do that? And then all of a sudden you're just in your own head about some of that stuff where it's like, because I honestly, I had a meeting yesterday and a wallet fell on the ground, right? This kid, we were at a player meeting and this wallet fell down and the kid didn't realize it fell. And like it sat there for about 5 to 10 minutes, and I was just like, I'm going to grab this thing at some point, give it to the kid, and like there was me and 8-10 other guys that saw it. So eventually like it got to like, it was like next topic. And I was like, I can't wait for this. I'm just going to go give it to the kid. But it's funny because there is some anxiety about what are you going to be accused of? How, like, you could just in your own head, like go, hey man, that's my wallet. It's like, no, you're good. And then all the families are like, hey, what are you doing with that kid's wallet? It's like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's trying to steal his wallet.
And I don't think I would necessarily have that fear if I didn't experience something similar before in my life like that.
Like like get up when the guy just sits down. It's like that, like, what are the odds that the guy's going to just trail you around the movie theater drunk and, but it's that
It's the possibility being there.
You run through that scenario in your head, and then all of a sudden you have this, I don't know how to handle it if next steps are taken.
Right, exactly.
But then you like do the linear regression line or the percentile of that happening, and it's like in the 0.0001% universe. But it's still like you get into that situation where now you're overthinking it. And this movie had those scenarios. It's really funny. Now, obviously, these are like the points of happening that we all recognize probably wouldn't happen.
Yes.
But to the point that Beau has it happen to him, it actually comes to fruition. It's just really funny. Like in that your situation, hearing that, I'm like, holy shit. Because I had the same thing. It's like a lot of it I didn't relate to, but some of it I was like, yeah, I could definitely see me like not doing this because...
And that's kind of what I mean by the movie, like the environment I was in almost immersed me too much into the movie.
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
It was such a weird experience.
You're sitting there like you got that guy next to you and you're like, I want to get up. And then all of a sudden Beau's running through the fucking city naked trying to get around people. And he's like getting shot down by police officers. And you're like...
I think I audibly said to myself, like, what is happening? As the movie was doing some weird shit.
Well,
like,
the first act is like... You really have no idea what you're in. Like, even...
Oh, yeah. You're still figuring it out.
Oh, dude, I didn't really...
You could argue that you don't figure it out by the end of the film.
I think they're... Well, I mean, like, you postulate your theories, you know. So, like, I obviously, I think we all could agree that it's got something to deal with the mom, you know. And you know,
I think you brought it up earlier, like nature versus nurture, like that kind of butting heads as a sort of theme of this movie, and the whole Oedipus angle of it.
Yes.
The idea that he might be his own dad.
Yes.
He has the same exact condition as his dad does, and a lot of things that she described about his dad can apply to Beau.
So I went through and I was like, I think what it was I think the mom... So I was talking to Jasmine about it. I think the mom had a one-night stand with some guy, decided instead of telling Beau that he's got a dad and she doesn't know who it is, it's easier to say that he was killed. Not only that, it's a very controlling aspect to tell Beau that if you ejaculate into another woman, you're going to die, and that you have the lineage of history before you that your father, your father's father, and your father's father's father all had that happen to them. So it's... Really what she's doing is you are going to be my son. You will never leave my side and you can never be with another woman. Right. So you have that whole angle. But at what point does Beau have to recognize what's going on? Or at what point could he have said, I need to create my own journey, which is why I didn't like the third act, and now I'm really coming around on it.
Is that the one with the play?
Yeah, and you get
that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I really liked how it. I will say, mostly from an aesthetic, visual angle.
Oh yeah,
I like that part, but thematically too, I can resonate with it a little bit in terms of like what the movie is going for overall. Like I enjoy just the whole. Because, I mean, there's a journey aspect to it. It's very artfully made.
Yes.
It's, touching on a lot of the same themes that Beau himself's going through, and that's very purposefully done. But,
yeah,
I don't know. I like how that scene played out.
I did, too. Well, at first I didn't. At first I was like, all right, great. And I thought what was going on was they were describing the journey that he was on, and that we were starting to see more of where, like, foreshadowing, if you will, very bluntly foreshadowing. And then all of a sudden they get, this never happened. And then you realize, oh, this is what could have been had he gone to his own village and created his own destiny.
Yeah, it's almost like an alternate path, like different reality Beau sort of thing.
And then you get to see it play out. But it's also funny because if you think about it consciously for him as you're going through this, and obviously he's envisioning this scenario going on, he's got to recognize... because if it is, we are within his mind with all the events being foretold, then he would have recognized that at some point he could have done that. So it's interesting to think about kind of, the purpose that it serves, but also, if who's telling the story.
Yeah.
I
think where this movie kind of lost me is when he's in the house with his mom and his mom reveals that she's alive and you get the attic scene. And I think that's kind of where the movie sort of lost me a little bit.
It was...
in terms of, like, my engagement of it. Maybe not necessarily, like, the themes and the messages, but
It was almost out of left field. It's
A
hard to
little bit.
say because it's
Little
like
bit.
it's not, but it is. You know,
Right, because like the whole surrealist nature of this movie kind of make sense,
Right.
with the whole movie and how it is, but at the same time, I don't know, it's almost a little too in the realm of goofy and
Yes.
wacky and over the top.
I didn't know. Yes.
I think over the top is the right word.
Well, yeah, it's so, and we don't have to tell anyone. It's just a one-eyed monster.
Oh, we gave a spoiler warning. We can tell people what it is.
I still don't want, if you're, because I don't know who this is one of the ones where it's like because I was like, what the fuck? Like that's what I'm saying. Like I'd rather have this is one of the genuine ones where I'm like, I really would want someone to experience that. Because it is, I'm really never like, oh shit, you know, like if something scares me, sure, you get a thriller, jumps, like whatever. This one, I felt like I sunk into my seat and I was like, I don't know what's going on right now. Like it felt, because like in terms of the movie, it does fit in, like you're saying, you know, but at the same token, like it went from like being like a dark comedy to like a goofy comedy.
Yeah, and at that point for me personally, it hits a point in the film where I have to go, okay, if this is the point in the movie that we're at where I can't tell what's real and what's abstract and what's surreal, then what does it really matter if something happens to the characters? Because then you could just say, oh, this actually didn't happen. Like, there's a certain point in ambiguity in movies where I reach where it kind of loses me. And I think that's where this movie lost me.
See, I'm going to tell you right now, I was already out as soon as he was jolting through the street. Like that, like at that point, I was like, I really don't know. And I keep going through unreliable narrator. One, we really don't know. I mean, from at least there's a perspective you could say you really don't know who's doing the narrating, right? Because of what is happening. All right. But if you were to say it is Beau, it is where is he at in reality versus where are we at in his conscience or within his realm of thinking? You know, that's what, like, if you were to do like a side by side, like let's just say you were like, we followed Beau, but Beau was just doing everyday stuff. Like, let's say he went to that play and it was actually just he went to a middle school play, but he's viewing it in this world, you know, that he's created. But we're side by side with him. We see he's obviously just in a middle school play, you know, and then the character interactions that happen are normal interactions. But for Beau, it's what we see. So that's how I had it this whole time was we're obviously in his world, but like where he's at, this could just be New York City on a street corner or Chicago, you know, but that's just how he lives in his own world. So if we're within his mind, like how he sees things, I was lost a little bit because we delved into like a more subconscious part, if you will. Like we're going upstairs. Like I was like, all right, now we're getting into something that I really... And that's where it's like, you know, locked away under what key and lock or whatever the
lock
fuck.
and key.
Yeah, you know that old phrase.
Key and peel.
Yeah, locked under key and peel. You know, like that's where I was like, all right, I feel like we've already been here, and now we're taking another step.
Yeah,
and it's getting more metaphorical.
I can see that perspective. I think the reason I'm able to believe it a little bit more is because still, even though those events and his perspective of fear is heightened reality, it's still a form of reality. It's still something that he lives. Whereas it's something that we can relate to in a way. Whereas like the monster in the attic, and I won't go into any more specifics.
The one-eyed monster,
it's a very abstract thing. Like that's not something that you can relate to. That specific thing for face value.
I mean, I can't relate to a naked guy out on the street stabbing people and a cop hitting on a prostitute watching it happen. You know what I'm like? That's not a reality that I've ever seen either.
Well, you haven't gone to New York yet.
Yeah,
so.
I was about to say, like, I got, you know, out in broad daylight with that going on. So like I'm with you though. It was goofy. It's goofy.
It's very goofy.
I think we were both like, because. Yeah, I think we're both saying the same thing. It's just in two different thoughts.
Yeah.
You know? Because I understand where you're coming from. And for me, I also am like, all right, I mean, we are in it's Beau's reality, if you will. You know? But that thing didn't make sense at any point. We're taking the next step into a certain... For me, it's a compartment in his head.
Yeah.
That he's either never really thought about, dived into, or his mom's always, because of the nature of who she is and what she did to him, finally said something that kind of opened up that chamber.
Yeah, just she's always buried it, that part of it. It's always been kind of ambiguous to him.
Well, and, you know, one of the things that you think about, too, that person that was up there, because you have the one-eyed monster, and then you got, you have the guy that was chained up, and, you know, from one of the things, because I did a little bit, I wanted to do a little reading on the second act of this thing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's the only thing that never really fit into anything that I was trying to, I guess, decipher. It's him when he was standing up to his mom, because, you know, he said, I always had a twin that was, you know, but it was actually that version of himself that said, hey, I want to know these things. Mm-hmm. And she neutered him, essentially. So, like, for me, like, when I was watching it, and I think I was talking to Jasmine about it, I was like, if it's in Beau's head, it's obviously the part of him that she stripped away of that confidence, but also she neutered him because she said you couldn't do all these things, and he never went and said, I can be with these women, or I can do this, or I can do that. You know, so, like, he was kind of stripped of that, and as well as, you know, that person that was there that stood up for everything that, you know, it takes some courage and some bravery to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, it's really what kills his initiative, because the whole movie he's unable to make a decision for himself.
Yeah.
And so that just really cripples his whole living situation. What did you think of the end scene with the stadium?
I loved it. Dude, we went and saw this thing, and there was only, I don't know, 10, 12 people in the theater with us. Like, so I'm kind of like, all right, I don't know if this is Ari Aster films. I don't know if Hereditary did well at the box office. If
I think it did, because it was marketed as more of a horror movie,
okay,
and people just like that.
Yeah, and Midsommar, I don't know if that did or didn't. You know, his films kind of seem polarizing. I could see a certain brand of people liking it versus not liking it. Mm-hmm. So, going into this, I didn't really expect much, but like when it was just us and a couple other people, I was like, either they're really film geeks, or I'm gonna get like, you wasted my fucking time.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get an Everything Everywhere All at Once, girl in the theater experience like I did.
There was literally, we had the whole theater opened up, and there's 2 people 2 chairs away from me that way, and 2 people 2 chairs away from that way, and me and Jazz right there. So 6 people all in one row watching this thing. So she picked out the seats. She must have had like this is where people go, because that's where we all gravitated towards.
You had more people than I did.
Oh yeah, well, and it was couples all around. So that scene happens, and I'm like laughing. I'm like really like, oh shit, like, because the defense lawyer was killing me when he would like the
shouting
mom,
from the distance.
Well, you've got his guilt, right, with the mom sitting next to him, just fucking berating him, and then whatever that guy was representation of, maybe that like kind of that inner dialogue that you have of like, you know, like, I feel this way, but maybe I shouldn't feel that way. Mm-hmm. And that guy's just like off in the distance, like screaming stuff. I was dying laughing, because every time he made a point, that guy would come out and say something. I'm like, that is how internal dialogue works. Like, so I really appreciated it, because I was like, I've never thought about having it like that, you know, and to be brought to life was, I thought, really creative and really fun. And then the movie just ends, and
yeah, it's almost, I don't want to say anticlimactic, but it's very sudden.
Yeah,
it's very sudden.
One of the fun things that you talk about is the hero's journey, and you reach the penultimate, or I shouldn't say penultimate. You reach the end with whatever's to be determined, you know, and usually it's coming out on top. So it's almost like, because you're doing like a reverse hero's journey, if you will. That's how it should go. Mm-hmm. You fail, and that's it. Yeah. You know, so the thing ended. I was just sitting there, and I was like, all right, like, let's go. And I was like, obviously he's all fucked up from his mom. And dude, the whole theater's literally quiet, staring, because they don't know what they just saw. Uh-huh. And I'm in the same boat. You know, it's not like I'm like, got it down.
Quite literally the same boat.
Yeah. Well, not the same boat.
That was an 8 out of 10 joke. Thank you very much.
Oh, that was a good one. Oh. That was a hearty chuckle.
Oh, okay. So maybe more of a 9 then.
Yeah. Well, let's not get too...
Oh, okay. I don't want to jump into it.
Are we getting into decimals? Maybe an 8 point something.
So speaking of decimals... yeah, kind of touching on
Did you fucking bait me into that?
emptiness of this theater, yeah. This is A24's most expensive movie at $35 million. I want you to guess how much it's made.
Oh, dude, $16 million.
It has $8.3 million.
Not shocked.
Yeah. It's a bum, that's for sure. But, I think A24 is not going to take a huge loss. They'll just market more like Everything Everywhere All at Once merch, and they'll make their money back. But it does say something to the effect of the theaters are usually empty when this movie's playing, and then like everybody flocks to the Marvel film. And I think it just has to do with the accessibility and the marketing of this movie and like the content.
Dude, I'm telling you. I'm going to take a very surrealism approach here and create a movie and put it out for 3 hours. Like, that's not easy to keep people engaged.
No.
And I think, one, we had to talk about it, but two, the nature of us watching film is we do have a genuine curiosity but behind what the director's saying and what's going on here. And let's try to pinpoint this. And it enlightens us. And I'm going to say, like, right now, it's giving me better fodder about just things I experience dealing with anxiety. And things that do pop up. I'm telling, like, that first thought when that wallet dropped and I'm sitting there staring at it, I was like, this is a fucking Beau Is Afraid moment. Like, that was my first, like, and
this is a real Beau moment.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, though, I mean, like, when you do that, you can have growth behind that, though, because now you can acknowledge that you're in a moment and what's going on and your emotions behind it. So, like, without having seen this, I won't ever have that reference, nor would I ever have those thoughts about if something does approach, about having like, all right, well, what would Beau do or what would Beau not do? Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that this movie makes you feel so good about your life because Beau is such a loser that at least you won't be able to make the decisions that he makes.
Because there are times with what was going on with him where I was like, I would be that guy too. There's like, if you took Beau
is literally me.
Like, he's like, effigy, if you will, or if you put him out as saying like if he was just sitting on that table and like we just got to watch all these moments go through this like transparent body, right? And you just said that's Beau. There are moments that you would go, wow, you fucked that up, and I don't know why you're struggling with that. But then there are moments where you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I see that.
Yeah, kind of like self-insert.
Yeah, there's a projection, and that's where it's like if you're dealing with the conscious, like there's a projection that we can all have that makes him relatable in aspects. Because I think sometimes too people don't like to see that and put themselves in those shoes, because if you're projecting yourself in this movie onto Beau, like you're like, I'm really fucked up, and I'm a loser.
It's a very flawed character, so if you do a little bit of projection with this, then it kind of makes you think a little more introspectively about things. Kind of makes you go like, what's wrong with my life and how is this similar to Beau's?
And that's where you get people that get queasy and they get a little bit, and that's where this film, that's what I'm saying, like dark comedy fits in, but it's, and like horror doesn't. But that aspect of that world and being able to make people feel like that is its own subcategory. And sometimes people like it and sometimes people don't.
Yeah, sometimes people say, you owe me after that one. That was such a fucking awful movie. Yeah. So we can kind of start wrapping up. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about with Beau?
The second act, what'd you think? Did it fit in? I thought that thing, I liked it. I don't like it. It's the most controversial one.
With the Nathan Lane.
Yeah, I liked him too.
I really liked him. I'm glad you brought him up because, it feels like it's been a while since I've seen him in a movie. But he's one of those actors where I don't think about him a lot, but when he is in something, he just elevates it.
Yeah.
And I like that he was in this movie. It feels like it's been a while for little Lane boy.
He's got a certain charm around him.
Yeah, and I like his voice too.
Yeah, well, I always think of Mousetrap when I watch him.
Yeah, me too, honestly. Mousetrap and Lion King.
He's Timon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Timon in the Timon and Pumbaa. That scene specifically, I thought it was fitting in line with, the first act, so I really didn't have a huge issue with it.
Yeah.
I was very curious what was going to happen, and it just kept my interest.
Here's the one thing that throws me off is the guy, the
mentally ill soldier.
Yes, that apparently I think, and I didn't catch. It sounded like he killed his own troop and he killed the guy.
Yeah, it was very like kind of the audience knows more than the characters sort of thing, where the way they talk about it, it's very obvious that that's what happened, but they're not thinking about that as something that happened.
Yeah, it was so odd. But then he shows back up in the subconscious part of Beau's brain, or however you want to view it.
Yeah,
to defeat the one-eyed monster, and I'm like, why is this guy back? What does he represent? And why is he? Because this is the third time I've seen him now.
Yeah.
And he was the first in the suburbs. He was out to kill Beau, and then in the woods, I thought he died. And then in the attic, he's back and he's taking that thing on. And I'm like, what is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he represented Beau's immortality or something along those lines. I shouldn't say immortality, mortality.
Yeah.
But I haven't quite figured that part out yet. I was thinking about that scene, though, in relation to the daughter character, and that it felt like she was very much acting like Sadie Sink from The Whale. It was very much like she was playing the same character.
I haven't seen The Whale yet.
Okay, yeah. If you watch it and you watch Sadie Sink, you'll think to yourself, oh, she's acting just like the daughter in Beau Is Afraid. Like very similar character types. So that was a little distracting for me, but I think it's mostly just in relation to how I feel about The Whale. So it's not really the movie's fault. So I'm not going to dock it for that.
Thank you. Jeez.
But yeah, I guess we can get into ratings for this. Did you want to go first, or you want me to put a stamp on it?
I will go. You put the stamp on it, because I'll do that for the Ghosts and the Darkness.
Okay.
I gave this. I think I'm at an 8 out of 10. I'm pretty solid 8 out of 10. I guess we didn't talk about the sex and anything like that. So the Preston phone call, I'm watching. I gotta just say this real quick too, because this is honestly like that anxiety that you talk about. We're watching the movie. Preston calls me. Now, mind you, the whole time, and I don't think we ever mentioned this, well, maybe a little. Beau never met his dad. Beau's dad died. Beau's dad never been around. Did Beau turn out because Beau's dad wasn't there, right? Like, that's kind of half the other aspect of the mom raised him, but the dad wasn't around, right? I'm getting a phone call from Preston. It's 2 hours into this thing, maybe an hour 45, something like that. Like right when he goes back to the mom's house, like right when the fourth act starts. And I'm getting this call, and I'm like, I can't talk to him, and then I kind of hit it, and then it starts ringing again, and I'm just staring at it, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want him to turn out like this. Run out of the theater, talk to him for 20 minutes. I was like, I can't. And I'm like sitting there in my head, I'm like, how do I justify this? I couldn't talk to my son because I'm at a movie that I paid $10 for. Like, I got to do, so I sit there. It's just like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that shit, like, you can project or see yourself a little bit and be like, oh God.
Yeah.
So I ran out. So I went out to talk to him. So anyways, I missed a little bit about it, but the more I've been away from it, I think I've thought about this movie for 2 days now, and I've been really excited to talk about it. So this is closer to a 9 for me.
Okay.
Enjoyable. This is a thinker film, as sophomore, because that sounds a pun there, I think. No, it's Socrates.
Socrates.
Yeah. Okay.
As they say in Bill and Ted.
Well, we got 4 of the letters in there. Yeah. So, I think I enjoyed this, and I don't want to say it wouldn't be tough for me to put on a second time, but I think it'd be more so if like someone else was like, hey, you want to watch this? Versus me being like, I'm going to throw this on because I really want to dive into it.
Yeah. I gave this a 7 out of 10. I think it's definitely closer to an 8, and I might bump it up just after thinking about it in our conversation.
Yeah. But
I don't entirely know whether or not I want to give it a 7 or an 8 yet, but it's definitely in that ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Overall, really enjoyed it. There's some stuff that kind of lost me on, but it's well shot. It's well acted. I like the characters.
Yes.
And it definitely kept my attention for the entire time. So
yeah, and it'd be interesting on the second viewing to see where you'd stand at knowing what the outcome is. That's where I think this thing would get its chops, is if you can watch that again and keep drawn with the same interest.
Yeah, I would definitely know and be more confident about my opinion if I watched it again.
Yeah.
So, but it is 3 hours long, so who knows when that will be?
Well, I mean, I think if you took away enough from it. Like I said, this isn't like something I would tell people to absolutely not watch again, but also at the same token, like if you're telling me you're rushing out to watch it again, it's kind of like, all right,
maybe you need to go to therapy,
or like, what did you see that I don't see, or how is this impacting you in a good way?
Yeah, definitely raise some eyebrows a bit. Speaking of eyebrows, a couple of lions in Africa raised some eyebrows at one point in history in the 1900s when they started attacking people, and they made a movie based off of it. Oops, I was scrolling through my Facebook and it started making noise. I'm sorry. I'll try to cut that out.
Boy, you really got the segue down and the intro.
Yeah. And of course, we're talking about The Ghost and the Darkness.
And the Darkness.
Not The Ghost in the Darkness.
All right, so I'm going to say right now, so when I recommended this, like you had to correct me, right? And I was a little embarrassed because I was like, how do I get that messed up? I watched this as a kid with my parents. Now, granted, I've seen this movie probably like 8 times.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Subtle humble brag. I always thought it was the ghost in the darkness for what the lions did at night. So I was always thinking they called them the ghosts, and they would pull you like into the darkness.
Yeah,
like
because naturally you think ghosts and darkness, like the ghost roams in the darkness. Like he lurks in the darkness.
And these were two kind of figures, if you will, of evil. So it made sense. But then you learn that the lions' names that they called them were the ghost and the darkness.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, I got egg on my face, but this is very, very slight fucking egg.
Yeah.
Because it almost makes more sense to call it in the dark. But anyways, I'm not going to sit here.
It's like Beau's Afraid. How much of this is my responsibility? How much of this is external reasoning?
I had to get a laugh because I was like, how did I mess this up for all these years? I've always called it the ghost. Like this wasn't like, like when they do that meme of like, how old were you when you realized this? Yeah. And it's like, I was this many years old. Like that was that. Mm-hmm. So, anyways,
33 years old,
and I love this movie. So I mean, it's like it was like very embarrassing. But I mean, read it up, and that's why we do this, is we get to educate ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, The Ghost and the Darkness, directed by Stephen Hopkins, written by William Goldman, and I think Michael Douglas helped a little out with rewrites.
Okay.
This is starring. Here we go. Michael Douglas. I don't think he got first billed. This
is
starring,
I was gonna ask that. Like, why is he top billed? He's clearly not the star.
So, right, he's not. Or can we go? So let me do this, and then we'll go into that. Okay. Sorry. So starring Val Kilmer as Colonel John Henry Patterson, Michael Douglas as Charles Remington, John Kay. As Samuel, and then a couple other. Oh, where's my boy at? Oh, I don't know if he's gonna pop up on this or not. He should.
Tom Wilkinson?
No, Brian McCarty.
Brian
McCarty as Angus Starling. Oh, he was also in Speed 2.
Oh,
that's why I love him so much.
Was he now? Okay.
Yeah, he's in 2 of my favorite films of all time.
Oh, there's another correlation there.
I shouldn't say it like that. Only one of them, and we're not talking about it. So like we said, aforementioned, this movie's about a bridge that needs to be put up in Kenya as the British imperialists try to start conducting ways of transportation for commerce within the country of Africa. And they're running against the Germans and the French, as alluded to or preluded, well, however you want to, talked about by Tom Wilkinson. Mm-hmm. So they bring in Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson to come in, help out with the bridge. Apparently he's an engineer, and when he gets there, there's talks about man-eaters, lions, if you will. So, a couple days go by, nothing happens, and all of a sudden there's more and more attacks on this community, and Val Kilmer's got to figure out how to stop these things. So
Val Kilmer goes Batman mode and saves the day.
And there's a lot of things that you learn about all of this with production and people and whatnot. But first things first.
Yes.
So Michael Douglas in this thing, right? It's his production house that put this on.
Oh.
So
Constellation Films Douglas / Ruther production.
Sam or Steven Ruther. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's funny too. Like I get Michael Douglas helped produce One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So
yeah, because wasn't it his? I think his dad wrote a book about mental patients or something. He get like Kirk Douglas. I think his father was heavily involved in like that sort of thing, and so
Spartacus.
maybe I don't know much about like the history of him as an actor or
the
like
Douglases.
Yeah, the Douglases. I just know that his father was very heavily involved in that sort of thing, and so like he helped produce it because of his dad's involvement.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so he produced this thing, and he really liked the script, and it was one thing that caught his eye. And the production house, Paramount, whoever took it on, they wanted to have a lead star or something attached with awards to it. So Douglas found it and said, we'll help you guys out. We'll partner up with this, and we'll put this on because I believe in the script so much. And he really liked the character. So the Charles Remington guy was called like, I can't remember his exact, Redbeard. In the original script.
Okay.
And so Michael Douglas started reading more about Redbeard and decided he wanted to take it on, and told William Goldman that he wanted more backstory and character development for Charles Remington than was already provided by Redbeard. Goldman said that he didn't really like it too much because he thought that Redbeard, being somewhat of a mythical character within himself, going against the lions or the evil, that when he, spoilers, died, it'd make John Henry Patterson all that much more brave, if you will, and sort of kind of really put a nice bow tie on that hero's arc.
Yeah.
So, but Michael Douglas told him to fuck off, and he was producing the film, and he ended up adding, like, they went through post and they took out 45 minutes of the movie without him in it to put his character in there.
Damn.
Yeah, so
talk about a self-insert.
Dude, Stephen Hopkins?
Stephen, probably.
Stephen Hopkins has not seen this thing, and he really didn't like it. Him and Goldman were pissed off that Douglas did it. So that's why they're both like, this movie could have been so much better.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's a little bit about that.
Anyways, yeah. Guess we can jump into the film discussion itself. Yeah, no, I wasn't too huge on it, I'll be honest.
I figured
it seems like one of those movies where, despite my feelings about it, it does seem like there's a lot that goes into it and there's a lot going for it.
Yes.
So I think a big thing that I took away from it, and this was like kind of after reading about the real life figure of John Henry Patterson and the account that he wrote with those two lions, there's a very heavy kind of theme going on with religion and sort of like kind of the religious aspect to it almost. It's kind of very Old Testament in how it feels. Yeah. Where you take this figure, let's say, I think the most comparable example I can bring up is Job from the Bible. Okay. You take a figure like Job, you place him in this situation, and then there's trial after trial after trial that he has to deal with. And I think I definitely got that sense when I was reading about the book, but I think it can be applied here too, where you take this character, you drop him in a situation, and then he just has to overcome adversity after adversity. And I don't think it's an accident that they included a character in it that's very religious, and it kind of helps to touch on those religious themes even more. And I think that's the thing that I appreciate about this movie the most, is that it presents those things in a way where, while watching the movie, I wasn't really aware of it, but after the fact of looking into it and thinking about the correlation of it, it does make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I can take away from it.
That's good. I mean, I'll take that.
Yeah.
This guy, too, William Goldman, wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not.
I got that actually on. It's funny because I've seen it once or twice, but it's on my list of movies to recommend. I didn't know that. So you wrote that. So he's a good writer. I'll say that. So, okay. And that's good to hear that that's a good aspect to take from it. And I don't know much about Job and what he went through, but I'm glad that he knows John Henry Patterson.
Yes. The two met and they shook hands and they're in heaven, taming lions or whatever. And the fact that, lions in the Bible, they're kind of a running thing. Now, I don't want to say theme, but like they're a prevalent animal throughout scripture.
He even when Angus dies, there's a scripture that he recites as he's talking about Angus, and it's lions are in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about the lion's den.
Yeah,
probably from like when Daniel had to go in there. I
had a song. Did he go to Georgia?
I think that's the devil went down to Georgia.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
I know a few Bible religious things.
No, it's good though because it's applicable and those stories hold up, and that's where some of these journeys come from. It's things that are related to such events,
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I mean, I'm listening. I'm bright-eyed like holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some things that I picked up on that I was like, oh, this will be interesting to talk about. So
100%.
Figured I'd bring that up, but yeah, as the movie itself, I don't know. I feel like there's not going to be a whole lot I remember from it. I remember it being kind of goofy and over the top in a lot of ways. It's very much kind of like, it almost feels like it's a horror movie at points with these two lions.
Yeah, they had a really like the horror genre is like it gets. I don't want to say it's so like overlapping. Like, at what point do you say it's thriller, or like at what point do you say
it's like survival or psychological? Like, there's a lot of.
Like, I don't want to say psycho. I mean, because
I'm just talking in general.
Yeah. Exactly, you're right. Because I mean, Beau Is Afraid. That would be like a psych. Anyways.
Yes.
The evil presence, and it's one of the funny things that you talk about is because like the director, when he got assigned to it, he read about the lions. And he said, I wanted to bring them out and make them feel like they were these mythical creatures. And Goldman even was like, I don't know if we should do that because in real life these things were like average size. There were maneless lions that were average size, and these things were like fucking 10 feet. 10 feet 6 inches, behemoths with giant manes, So they're really trying to bring out that evil aspect and bring out this mythological, character. I don't want to say characters, but creatures, make them feel like kind of insurmountable, like Jaws was. That's one of the big things that always gets referenced with this.
Yeah, I was more so thinking like kind of the mythos of, and this is a weird comparison for me to make, but there are certain parts of it that almost reminded me of Sandlot in the way that the kids would talk about the dog on the other side of the fence and how the movie would portray it. It's like this big behemoth of a thing. And then, of course, like in that movie, you see the dog. And it's like, okay, it's just a bulldog.
It's just it's a dog.
Yeah, it's just a dog. Yeah. It's like, it's maybe like 3 foot high and that's it.
Right.
But with this movie, it's very like, it does kind of remind me of that in that it makes these forces of nature almost... like they're the villains of the movie. They're antagonistic. Like they're the forces of evil that they have to go up against.
Right.
They make them bloodthirsty. They make them malicious. They destroy everything around them. It's almost as if like
they're unstoppable, right?
It's almost as like they're not even. It's not even like nature versus man. It's like they are the bad guys. They are evil. Right. And like you definitely get that sense when you go and see the lair that they have, and Michael Douglas goes, "This is no lion's lair that I've ever seen," or like whatever he says.
So they actually found the cave. They did some extensive like research on it, and it's riddled with bones. And they were like, so the people that found it, they tried to discredit it and say that like there were other aspects or other acting parties that added to what was going on, but from like extensive research, they like dropped trying to discredit it, so it feels like it's more authentic. So not to say like that cave, obviously, done up in props, but there was a layer in which they were operating. Did you read up on the lions at all?
I read a little bit about the event and the sort of disparity between what John Henry Patterson wrote in his book and the actual possibilities of how many people those two lions killed.
Yes.
Whereas like the movie and the book, I guess, portray it as like 130 or something. And
135.
Yeah. And then there were some researchers that, they did studies and they had like different hypotheses, and they came to the conclusion that it was more so probably like 28 to 31 people that were killed.
So what they pulled from was like the records of the workers that they were using from India, the coolies. If you will.
Yeah.
But you had other acting tribes within the African region that were helping out with it that didn't have like records to for record or however you want to put it. So that's where it. And who's to say? I mean, like the guy that there is like, they fucking killed 200 people. Like I would be like jacking that number up,
Right.
And then the public records that they could find, or the people that actually assisted on site that they could account for, added up to 20 to so it's like anywhere in between 30 to 130, right? Which I don't know. To me, it's like I really don't know if you go from fucking the lions killed 5 people, like any number past that, I'm like, whoa, So.
Yeah. It's just interesting the things that they include with this movie specifically that kind of make it more they make it more cinematic. They make it more of a movie. Like there's the creative decision to make them lions with manes as opposed to in real life where they were maneless.
Right.
And then obviously too, I think I read that was a decision by the crew to make it safer because that was the air quotes safest type of lion to be around. They're a little more docile than the ones without manes, I guess.
I don't exactly know. Some of the,
at least from what I read.
Yeah. I can't, yeah. Speaking of discredit, yeah, I don't know. I read that, these guys, I think they did it for effect, if I had to guess. And probably
that was probably the case
if
primarily.
You're talking because they brought in they created these lions, animatronic lions, puppet lions, clay lions, and they ended up using the real lions for 90% of the shoots. And there's actually a lot of special effects and digital composing or shot to shot that they would just overlap.
That's another positive I have too, is that it definitely felt like they just used the lions, and a lot of the stuff that they did was very practical.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, and it's you're shooting on set, you're dealing with real animals that have to be tamed. And the script, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend this film and say it's, of the ilk of the time right now, and that this is could be, you can watch it in 2018. This thing, we put it on DVD, and it's shot by 4:3 or whatever. It doesn't even fit on the TV. It's, mine got shrunken down, so it's definitely not intended to be expanded. And it's some of that, Michael Douglas's acting in this is bizarre.
Yeah, it's weird. The performance, it's very kind of, I don't want to say cartoonish, but almost I'm the real big dick around town now.
Plans have changed. Get back.
Yeah, you listen to me and you listen good. That Michael Douglas voice that he's got. I'm gonna make sure we get out of this alive.
And then he does his squint. He's like, "No, are you gonna stand up or are you gonna sit down?"
I'm the rootinest, tootinest cowboy lion hunter around these parts, and you're gonna do what I say, or you're gonna get eaten, my friend.
Yeah, and it was yeah, kind of. And I'm I think this is how just Michael Douglas is in all his films. He felt way more over the top in this one, and then you realize he's wanted to be more in it. That's what really threw me off. I was
yeah,
you had this in mind and wanted more of that.
It almost feels like the movie is molded around him wanting to be this character. Especially when you have the knowledge that it was his production company and that he made so many of the creative decisions.
I think what happened was he read Redbeard, fell in love with the character, and was I want to keep the mystery of Redbeard, but I also want people to understand how he got to who he is, which you can't do. It's either you get the mystery or you develop the character. But if you develop the character, dude, just be some worn out fucking hunter.
Yeah.
He tried to keep this very mysterious personality around him.
Where he was very ingratiated with the tribes, the warriors, and he was I'm gonna go join them now. I'm gonna go sing tribe chants, even though I'm a raging honky.
Dude, and the funny thing too is William Goldman, there's a book he wrote, he's Which Lie Did I Tell? And he says that he's we had to write more of the character for him. We had to cut out 45 minutes of the film to put more of his scenes in here. And he goes, and that's why a lot of the storylines and events don't make sense, because if you listen to him, Sam is talking to Val Kilmer at one point, or Sam's talking to Patterson.
Yeah.
And he tells him, he's you would be doing the same thing if you were born here and had everything stripped from you. This is the only life he knows. And it's he's fucking American. Where did someone just come here and Tarzan his ass?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that aspect of it up, the different storylines and how they don't make sense, because it definitely feels like this movie has a lot of ideas that just don't fully feel fleshed out. I was reading about the book, and it touched on all the different aspects that the real life John Patterson wrote in his book, and about the different conflicts between the Muslims and the Indians, and how there's kind of all these different struggles that he has going forth, the different wildlife that he has to deal with.
Yeah.
And those are barely touched on, if at all, in this movie. They're brought up for maybe one or two lines where Samuel goes, oh, you got to watch out with, the Muslims, they eat the beef, and then the Jews, they don't eat the beef.
Right.
And then there's a conflict between them, and it's okay. But then that's never brought up again, and that's not a point of contention. That doesn't ingratiate itself in the story. it's very much like parts of this were just kind of unfinished and just left to the wayside.
See, I wish, because I read that as the film was going on, I wish I would have thought about setting up storylines that never get finished. Like for me, when Remington comes in, I was kind of like, how does this impact what we know? And sometimes I have a hard time going from like storyline A to B to C because, you know, depending on just where it's at on your lobe, on the frontal lobe, you know, like you just might not see it or pay attention. So like that movie, it's always made sense to me because I always take like the general 80% of what we're doing or 65, whatever you want to view it as.
Yeah.
And that to me makes the whole, but it really doesn't. And I'm glad that you said something like that because there are points that get brought up, you know, or just he's from here that never really get brought back up or touched on or kind of figured out.
Like there's definitely one that's a little bit more than the others, but it's not at all like really fleshed out. It's the like kind of almost white savior aspect of the movie that it touches on for a second, and then it kind of does a reverse where he's going through all these different trials and things kind of go against him.
Yeah.
Where he kills the lion, and then he has that bit of beef with the one guy who's like the leader of all the workers, the guy who wears the turban.
He's supposed to be an Indian, like a British colonial Indian. I don't know exactly. They brought him from India.
Gotcha. They have that conflict, and he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, of course it's easy for you. You're white." And then like they have that little bit of a tiff in that scene. And then the whole aspect of the whole white savior angle that I think the movie almost kind of wants to touch on but doesn't really is never brought up again.
Well, they took him out.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like if we don't want to deal with that, we'll just
and I don't know how much of that is the movie kind of going against the grain of a white savior movie in that, oh, this guy is failing and he's losing all of his men and all these people are dying and he's not saving the day, or how much of that is just we dropped this storyline altogether. Now it's just a pure survival hunt story. I
would guess that it's probably the second part of it.
And that's what it, you know, I'm kind of leaning towards as well.
Because I have no idea because like you watch Remington, he doesn't come until 45 minutes of this thing. I think this is like 2 hours on the nose.
Which I'm surprised if he had more control than I originally thought that they didn't introduce his character sooner.
I think he really liked and this is just me kind of reading some of this stuff. I think he really liked the Redbeard character. I think anyone really would. Like when you bring in kind of like like an old Western, you bring in the sage advisor, you know, that's got all the experience and this is his last rodeo and you don't really know that, you know, but it's kind of like, man, like it's going to catch up with him, you know, and you really respect him for his expertise, but you also get to see him fail and understand that, you know, for the hero, it's like you come against those odds and that guy couldn't do it. And now I got to rise above that. You know, I think he really liked that, and then all of a sudden he went, well, I just want to be a character in here, so I want to, like, you double dip, you know. I want people to understand and see where I'm coming from, but I also want to have this aura around me, or this mystery, you know, with my character, and so I'm going to be cool, and, you know, you're not going to really know where I come from, and I'm going to say these really weird things that don't make sense, but they got to make sense. But at the same token, it's like, we're developing you of who you are and why you have these faults. And it's like, well, okay, now that I know that, you're not that cool.
Yeah.
Like even Goldman was like, he turned out like a wimp and a loser, is his direct quotes.
How like the final character turned out?
Remington, yeah. Like, he said like he kind of comes about like once you sort of get to the end of it, like he doesn't succeed, and because you know of his faults, it's like,
yeah,
like he's not that cool.
Like he's this propped up figure, but yeah, you're right. When you think about it, like what the fuck does he even do in this movie?
Nothing. He killed everyone in the hospital. That's the only thing I got from it. Yeah. Like I was like, I've never even paid attention, and then like at this time I was like, oh fuck, he kicked him out to set up this trap? Like this doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, he's like, we gotta relocate all these people, put them in this one location, and then the lion's like, hey, there's 2 guys over here versus 50 guys over here. I'm gonna go for the meat of what's here. Like,
oh my god, so
and there's just stuff in this movie like that I'm like, really? Like that's goofy.
It is goofy, and these movies they're a lot more fun for me at a later age because like, you know, I really liked them growing up, and this is like one that I always remember. You know, like I went and got this off Amazon because I was like, man, I like that movie was so kick ass when I was 10, and I watched it, and it's just fun to go back. But at the same token, like I really want to have that like what happened? How did this get made? Like the Phantom Menace, you know, like I would love to have that insight, like the research that you can do on these things and like figure out, you know, like Michael Douglas, the production, and that he influenced this film, and you get to learn more about the insights of kind of what happened without actually knowing what happened. It's just fun to me, you know. There's Val Kilmer was coming up. Bad publicity, is coming off a divorce, and
yeah, I read about that. Like the director was talking about all the different hardships that he had while this movie was being made.
Hopkins stood up for him, which says a lot about the director. Like I thought that guy would have thrown him under the bus, and like he, you know. Yeah,
this is what he said about Val Kilmer. He said he was completely exhausting from doing The Island of Dr. Moreau. He was dealing with the unfavorable publicity from that set. He was going through a divorce. He barely had time to get his teeth into the role before we started. He is in nearly every scene in this movie, but I worked him 6 or 7 days a week for 4 months under really adverse conditions, and he really came through. He had a passion for this film.
Yeah.
So, if anything, you know, you can just say that the director's a bro, at least to Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I don't know. You kind of read, him and Michael Douglas did not get along.
Well, there's also other stuff about, I guess, the onset incidents of this movie that, like, I really didn't see any other, like, source about this, but in the same paragraph.
I'm guessing you read the...
Yeah, the director talked about we had snake bites, scorpion bites, tick bite fever, people getting hit by lightning, floods, torrential rains, and lightning storms, hippos chasing people through the water, cars getting swept into the water, and several deaths of crew members, including 2 drownings.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
That's like stalker conditions right there.
Dude, it's nuts, right? And like, there's nothing online or anywhere about any of it.
It's just from the director's word.
That's what I'm like. Whoever Constellation, whoever else is like, we're never talking about these people again. Like, we'll have a ceremony here and we'll bury the body in Africa, and that's it.
Like, the making of this movie to me is more interesting than the movie itself.
Yeah,
it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I can only speak for myself.
This is based on actual events too. Like, you can't discredit. I know that there's a little bit of a fable attitude with it, but it is based on actual events. And the fact that these things killed 30 to 130 people, and because the only reason we don't know is it happened in 1900, and this guy had to kill him. Like, there is interesting facets to it. Now, granted, the movie itself doesn't do the event's actual justice. I will say that. But like, you can't discredit, like, the film itself is like, it's so hard. You live in a world with Jaws where the town of Amity was made up, right? And that the fucking guy that Buckner or whoever made that book, Beckley.
I'll look it up while you...
Whoever made that book went off. There was a shark attack that thing killed 5 people on the shoreline, you know, in the town of New Jersey back in the 70s. Like, that was about it.
Peter Beckley,
right? 5 people, okay? Like, that's it. Jaws gets made, holy shit, because it's in the water, you can't see the thing, like, fucking disturbing, right? Mm-hmm. Dude, these things killed 30 to 130 lions. You know what I'm saying? Like, the creatures that, like, yeah, you never mess with, but they don't do anything to people because you're never in the outback with them. Saw out people. It wasn't they were defending their territory. It was they're killing and eating them, you know? So, like, I think just the unfortunate thing is you know, they got a guy that had a little wind under his sail, but not too much, and then they get, you know, a production house in here with a guy that goes off on his rant, but that's what makes this whole thing very interesting.
It is very interesting. You know, I will never say that this movie isn't interesting.
Yeah, and it's not even perhaps some of the movie itself too. It's just what's attached to it.
Exactly, everything around the movie. I'm glad you brought up the word fable, because I want to talk about, speaking of fable, what did you think of the dream sequence that Val Kilmer has? Because I laughed so hard when that happened.
Oh, man. Okay, so I told Jasmine, too. I was like, because I watching this film, I was like, God, these things of the 90s, you can see that the differences in each decade almost, you know, we're kind of where we're going with cinema. I'm just watching this. I was like, Kyle's going to roast this thing. I was like, he's just not going to get into it. It's like, because it's just, you didn't grow up with those movies. You know, like, there's a certain appreciation you have to have with having been of the time and seeing those films. And we're watching the hospital scene. I think it was the hospital scene. And I looked at Jasmine and I go, I bet you Kyle laughs really hard at this
It was so goddamn goofy.
and then that dream sequence happens and I looked over at her and I go, nope, this is going to be the one.
Both of those were like baffling, but I think the more fun scene was the dream one, just because for a solid second, for like a second, not even like a millisecond, like a whole ass second, I thought maybe it was real.
Yeah.
I thought maybe the movie was going to go there. And I almost like would have commended it if it did. I was like, holy shit, they actually went for it. They fucking killed it. They went crazy with it and killed the wife and kid with the lion. Like, that would be fucking insane.
That would be. But that didn't happen in real life, Kyle. And this is where this is grounded.
I know. But still, like, after the second was over, I was able to say, okay, this is obviously a dream. Like, before even the lion was like coming into view, I was like, okay, this is in his head. This
movie gets marketed as like, it's like, it's kind of like Jaws. It's like, you get with your creature features, or I don't even want to say creature because I mean these are actual beasts and these happen, but it gets marketed as a horror film, right? Mm-hmm. Which not at all should, because none of this is scary. But when I was younger, that scene scared me quite a bit. Like, it's one of those things that I'll always remember.
I believe it.
Even if I have Alzheimer's, like, I'll remember that scene and be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And I could go on. But anytime I show this to people, I always love it because I know what's coming. And I always wonder, because I know, it's like dream sequence. And I always think in my head, like, I wonder if they'll know or when they'll pick up on it or if this will be like, holy shit. Like, the first time I showed Jasmine, she, like, audibly gasped. And she's like, no. And then, like, ah! And then she was like, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's great. And it's kind of funny because it's like if it was a horror film, like, you'd absolutely keep that in there. So that's why I give it a knock for it. But it's goofy.
It's very goofy.
I think of the time, though, I think that did shock some people because this was before, a
lot of people probably didn't even know that it was based on a real event, too.
They did. I don't think, that's why I wanted to watch the trailer of this thing, because I was like, I don't know if this gets marketed that way, or if it was like straight horror. Like, we're going to market this as thriller, horror, drama, like, God, you're getting chased by lions and you got to kill them.
They got some, like, Jaws knockoff music in the trailer.
Yeah.
Just playing, like, dirty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Slightly off.
But this summer, coming to a town near you.
Coming to an African village near you.
Lieutenant John Colonel Patterson must kill the man-eaters.
No, they would just say, Val Kilmer must kill.
Oh, no, they go, Michael Douglas must kill Val Kilmer.
Must kill Val Kilmer. Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer are the lions.
In the Kilmer and the Douglas.
Watch them bite each other for almost 2 hours. I'd watch that movie.
Oh, my. Yeah.
That'd be a different kind of film. Yeah, no, I mean, I really don't think I have too much else to say about it. The whole, like, religious character, Angus, he was interesting, He added a certain element to it, and then they kill him off, like, right away. And it's like, okay. The, like, religious character who's talking about God is all of a sudden, like, killed immediately. It's like,
maybe they were trying to say, hey, don't compare this to Job.
Yeah. They're trying to go against what I think the themes are. They're gonna send a lion after me next.
There's a funny. So I don't know much about Protestants and Catholics, and if you're either, don't kill me. Not to say that you would because of your religion. I'm just saying that as a figure of speech. Maybe I've talked too long. Am I talking out loud?
I mean, you're assuming quite a bit there, McClain.
But there's one of the saints. I want to say one of the apostles. They marry. It's a Protestant Irish person and a Catholic Irish person, and they get married. And there's a song about it, right? So Val Kilmer in one of the cuts is whistling that song, like "Orange is the New Socks" or something like that. I was gonna look it up, but apparently it gets pretty good laughs in Northern Ireland when it gets played.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is very niche humor type that I am not familiar with.
That one person out there that's going to go, you know what? I'm going to look at this. And then they listen to it and laugh. You're welcome. I will have changed one person's life today.
Yes, they're like, oh wow, we made such an impact.
I have no idea why there's that big of like a contrast. I think they hate each other, and there's been wars about that territory because of those things. But apparently that when they do that, and I don't even know if it's a laugh or if it's like turn this fucking movie off.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to watch Belfast in order to find out again.
No, that's okay. And it really upsets me that that's what the whole movie was about, and I still don't remember right now about like why.
I mean,
why.
To be fair, that's what the movie was about, but also it wasn't about that.
It wasn't. Oh, speaking of Kenneth Branagh, he was one of the guys that they were going to have direct this because Henry V did so successful.
Oh, how come he didn't? How come he turned this gem down?
I honestly don't remember. I think he either read the script or he found out he couldn't be Redbeard.
He found out he couldn't put a Shakespeare character in the movie, so he was like, "Fuck this! I don't want. Thou doth not want anything to do with it, sir.
Oh,
I shall not tame these lions unless I can recite Hamlet."
No, this it's certainly like Monty Python. No, he apparently wanted to have the kid in Belfast in it, and they said, "Well, it's not about a child; it's about a grown man that kills lions."
He's like, "Well, I'm not about this conversation," and then he leaves.
That's it. Oh yeah, dude. I guess he. Well, like I told you, the company, I think it was Paramount, whoever it was, wanted a award, someone that's had a nomination to their name in this film, whether it be the director or the main character, but that's how they needed it. Mm-hmm. This thing got written in 1986, and it took them 10 years to finally find that winning combination.
Found the right people.
So they used they had Costner, Cruise, and one other guy attached to it, right? So they brought Costner in.
Okay.
And they're like, "Hey, you're gonna get it. You want this?" And Costner's like, "I'm kind of interested." So he read a little bit on it. Well, someone leaked it to his party that they were only using him to get Cruise to sign on. So he said, "I'm out." And Cruise was like, "I don't do shit like this." So they had 3 guys narrowed down, and all 3 walked.
All that work, the fruits of your labor has been meaningless.
Yeah,
that's funny. That's funny to hear about. Was there anything else that you want to talk about this movie for?
I don't even need to talk about it. Just want to say, because a good friend of the pod, Jay Hall's a big UFC guy, and so is Chris.
Yes, shout out to Chris.
This is Charles Oliveira, his favorite film.
Oh, okay. I'm going to pretend I know who that is and shake my head.
Just nod, yeah. But those guys, they'll know, and that's 3 people that I'm going to impact right there. Wait till they go to B-dubs and tell people about that.
That's more than that one scene that was cut in this movie that would have impacted that person in Ireland.
God, I wish I could remember the song, too. Something about orange daisies or orange something.
Orange is the new daisy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I guess we can get into ratings. Would you like me to go first? All right. Mac is nodding his head as he's drinking his Hutto, his water. This is a 5 out of 10 from me. This is there's some things about it I really appreciate.
Okay.
But overall, I don't think it's my type of thing. There's some things about it that are a little goofy, a little cheesy, a little takes itself too seriously, and
I guess it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, not the worst thing.
No. Now you got it. Now you got it chambered, and you can talk about lions in Africa whenever you go out to places.
I'll give people certain facts about Africa, like Val Kilmer was in this movie when he showed up to Africa.
Yeah, and he talks about how much he loved it, and he goes, "How do you know so much about the wildlife?" And he goes, "I just learned about it just 10 minutes ago."
He's like, "I love Africa." Oh, how many times have you been here? Oh, this is my first time.
Yeah, ever. Yeah.
What time is it?
No, so this is a 8 out of 10 for me.
Nice.
Once again, a lot of the childhood nostalgia weighing in on this. I can't blame it for its faults, or I can't credit it for its faults. However you want to look at it, there are things that are wrong with it. One being that it does take itself too seriously, and Michael Douglas is zany as shit. But there's a lot of cool things about it, and I always forget that these things really did exist. This was a real event, and that. I think half of me wishes they would have used maneless lions, and they would have just kept it close to what it was. But I think it would have taken away a little bit of
the sort of mysticism.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. Yes, around it. But yeah, nonetheless, 8 out of 10. I think it's an easy watch. I don't think that this is 2 hours well, I take that back. It could. There are times where it's like very 90s.
Yeah.
And that's where it drags a little. Mm-hmm. I mean,
I would agree with you.
Yeah. And I'm not, and I've seen this movie a lot too. And there are points in this thing where I'm like, okay.
It's like, all right, I just got to get through this part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely understand that. Speaking of understanding,
yeah,
I understand that we have a few questions
believe
that we can answer.
Yes.
So thank you guys for giving us questions for us to answer. We will go through those right now. If you ever want to leave us a question, keep an eye out for our Facebook or our YouTube community page. Mm-hmm. I will often post those there where you can leave us your good stuff that we can talk about. And
good Samaritans.
Our first one comes from Levi, and he asks, favorite zombie movie and why?
Oh,
favorite zombie movie.
I think I read the wrong Levi question.
He put 2 questions.
Oh, he does.
In different spots. So I had to go digging for them both, and I got them both.
You go first. You love zombie films.
Well, it's interesting because I loved The Walking Dead. Walking Dead was my favorite TV show for a while. And I know. I'm just prefacing by saying that I
sounds like you're making an argument for why The Walking Dead counts as film.
Really haven't seen a whole lot of zombie movies, surprisingly. Like
0?
Oh, I would no. I've seen World War Z.
Counts.
I've seen what other ones are there? Yeah, I can't think of any other ones for some reason.
World War Z it is for you then.
Well, no, because my answer is not World War Z. My answer would probably be Shaun of the Dead. Yes.
Oh, it's a good take on it. It's a real hipster pick.
Did you know who you were talking to?
That was all tongue in cheek, everyone. I know Kyle's a hipster.
I would say as the why is because 1, I haven't seen that many, and 2, it's a really good zombie comedy that I don't think you get anywhere else.
True. So it's a good film. I mean, regardless of it's a good film.
It is.
It's one of a kind.
Really.
I am thinking about all the zombie films I've seen. I haven't seen... Now, the problem with, like, zombie films are... There are a decent amount that are very, like, straight to, like, DVD.
Like, yeah. Both in actual straight to DVD and in terms of the quality of the movie.
Yes. And then there are some that are... interpretations of zombies are using kind of like Warm Bodies. Remember that movie?
That's like
Shaun of the Dead thing, right? Warm Bodies is like the romantic relationship.
Yeah, but it's a different kind of take on it a little bit.
No, I'm thinking more of like Pontypool.
Oh, okay.
Like there are in those. That's why it's not coming. Pontypool is probably
or like I Am Legend.
Yes. Where there's a element of that there, but it's not necessarily zombies.
Yeah, they're not technically zombies.
Right. So Pontypool would probably be it for me, but the other one that I really enjoyed is 28 Days Later.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
It's a good one. I mean, it's interesting, compelling, tense, very tense. So I one of those two. I mean, if you're looking for the straight horror aspect of it, I'd say definitely 28 Days Later with like the thriller. I mean, that thing is fucking insane.
I've heard Train to Busan is really good.
I've thrown it on twice. It was right when we had Preston and it was on Netflix, and I threw it on, and both times I fell asleep 15 minutes into it. But I think it was just because I had a 4-month-old and
you were
only
super
getting like
exhausted.
4 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So. But I do want to check. That is another one that I'd like to check out. I'm trying to think of.
I pulled up a list. So obviously there's Dawn of the Dead, which is the zombie movie basically.
Romero's film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's The Crazies, which I remember. Seeing a preview.
That's
for.
another one. I just watched that recently. The Crazies isn't that bad.
Okay.
It's a little. It's Timothy Olyphant. It's actually tense, but there are some really goofy parts in it, and then there's some parts that don't make sense given the anatomy of the zombie and what it does.
Yeah,
like it completely takes over your brain, and then there's this couple that remember something for some weird reason just to add some thriller to it, but like you're
Oh.
like,
How have we not said Zombieland yet? Zombieland's
yeah,
it's a decent example of like a zombie comedy. It's along kind
It's
of
a
the same vein of like Shaun of the Dead.
that was a fresher take, in my opinion, on the genre.
Shaun of the Dead.
Zombieland.
Oh, okay.
So Shaun of the Dead's like one of a kind. Like it's kind of you're not gonna be able to replicate it, and it's it's not too self-referential, and it's not too what do you call that? You know, kind of self-aware.
Yeah.
Where Zombieland felt a little self-aware. You know.
Gotcha. Yeah. Zombieland felt more of like a tongue-in-cheek comedy. There's movies that they have zombies in them, but I don't know if I would call them a zombie movie. Like there's this South Korean movie called The Wailing, which is a really good movie, but I would say that's more of a horror movie than
a zombie movie.
because it has zombies in it, but there's like also like demons and ghosts and all this different supernatural stuff going on.
Sounds like it's up your alley.
It was it was definitely up my alley because I really liked it. So.
The Night of the Dead too. Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
From the 50s. That's actually not a bad one. That's there's probably 2 parts in there that are actually kind of creepy. Like I watched it probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago. It was sometime like right around like after high school in college, maybe senior year of high school. And there's some creepy parts in there.
Yeah.
And it's like the OG one.
Needless to say, I think I need to check out more zombie movies.
Yeah. Well, you better get ready for things happening.
Yes. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
That's foreshadowing, ladies and gentlemen. His next question also has to do with kind of his same genre. Post-apocalypse weapon of choice.
Yeah. There's so many that you could go from. Just depends. I mean, if you're looking at if we're going like realistic, limited ammo, like you gotta go with something that's got melee, small combat, but also has the dexterity to hold up. You know, that isn't gonna. When I was a kid, I invented. Okay.
This is gonna be a bold claim. I can tell.
I think it would hold up, depending on if you had a grinder. Like you'd have to keep it sharpened, but it was it was kind of like a 6 foot long, dual wielding. So kind of think of like, you're not a Star Wars guy, but for all you people that have seen The Phantom Menace with Darth Maul, that dual wielding lightsaber.
The dual wield saber.
One end is like the sword from Braveheart. Okay. The other end is a Sith.
Like a scythe?
Scythe, yes.
Like the Grim Reaper?
Yes. So you got dual wielding one action with the scythe or the Sith? Scythe. There's a Pokemon in there too.
You're thinking of Star Wars too much. That's why you keep saying Sith.
No, because I'm thinking there's a Pokemon in there too. The Sither. The Pincher.
I know dick all about Pokemon.
Okay. All right. So anyways, you got that. So that would be a dual wielding. So I'm thinking with any time for a 360-degree purpose, you always have something protecting you with a double, almost a double-edged sword, literally. So that'd be what I would
Quite
go
literally
with.
a double-edged sword. I feel like with a weapon like that, I would just end up stabbing myself.
How could you?
I would find a way. I'm very uncoordinated.
You'd have to have one arm right there and the other like on the blade and then pull. Like other than that, it's not like you can't set it down. Like you literally have to just set it in front of you.
Yeah,
it's very safe.
I will take your word for it. It's very safe. It's a very safe double-edged bladed weapon. For me, I'm trying to think of what I would call it, but it would be something where it would be it'd be like a gun. I'm almost like making up a weapon at this point, right?
I just did.
It'd be a gun.
Well, I think you could create mine though.
It'd be like a longer rifle. You'd hold it with two hands. But you would fire it, and if something got close to you, you could have a second trigger, and that second trigger would like shoot out a retractable knife and just It just like poke it, kind of like a scorpion tail in a way.
Yeah.
How it just like, or like the tongue of a frog, just like it just comes out.
I do like that juxtaposition right there. I'll say that.
Right? Yeah.
I'd take the scorpion's tail over the tongue of a frog, but I know where you're going. We're talking zombies, and you want to use frogs to stop them?
And obviously, you'd have to clean the gun, you'd have to sharpen the knife,
But see, those bullets run out.
But that's why you have the knife still.
Yeah, but what happens? Like when you're just gonna use that thing?
Well, I got to find bullets again eventually, because I'm thinking like, okay, what if I want to both do long range attacks and close range attacks? Because you got your like double edged like Sith sword thing, Star Wars going on.
Yeah,
but that's only close range. I'm thinking in terms of enemies far away and enemies close to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but like you're gonna run out of bullets, and then like if you get surrounded by like 12 of these things, you just got some frog wielding knife thing popping out.
I mean, we both have blades though. That's the thing. Whereas I have a blade and a gun.
Yeah, but I mean, my blades don't run out of bullets.
But my blade doesn't run out of bullets either.
Yeah, it will. And then all of a sudden you went from long range to short range, and your short range is like some freaking frog tongue popping people in the mouth.
I would find a way. Jeff Goldblum it. Life finds a way.
Yeah. I'm not going to knock it. I'm just like, if I had unlimited bullets, like if we were like, yeah, like you were next to like some, depot of
if we had unlimited bullets, then I don't think I would have to worry about a knife anymore. That's the thing.
Well, you could, like, you still could, Oh, speaking of the Ghost in the Darkness, that the pistol that Remington hands him, that I don't remember what it's called. That's an actual real gun that was developed for big game hunters for when the targets got in too close for the long range weapons.
Yeah,
they could pull that out and do mortal damage to the game. Yeah. So like you're watching that thing, people were calling that out. It's an actual, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's an actual gun. So like you say you wouldn't need it, but
it almost looked like a dueling pistol.
Yeah,
in a sense. Well, that's cool to know.
Yeah, but
anyway,
so let's don't knock the short range game. That's all I'm saying.
Let's just agree that mine is the best, and we'll move on. Take your vote. Make a comment. Whose weapon is better?
I'd love to hear that. I invented that thing when I was 6 years old.
You've got some longevity with it. You've had some time to development at least. Our next question comes from my mom. She asks, "How many indoor cats are too many?"
Gotta be careful with J Hall on this.
I feel like once you get to 4
cats,
I feel like that's a lot.
Okay.
4 cats might be a little too much.
Okay.
Depends on the house you have and how big it is and how many people you have looking after them. But yeah, I'd say 4 is like the tops. It's a little too much. Like 3, I think, would be my personal limit.
3's, yeah.
3 is quite a bit still, though. I don't know. What would you say? You're not really a cat person. Though.
We had cats growing up. We had Chelsea and Lou, and
Shout
we
out.
had assortment of other cats that ran away.
Oh, probably because there were too many.
No. They would just rotate. My mom was a carer of sorts, and we would find these cats without tags or anything, and it's like, well, we'll hold on to you as long as we can, and then they were just wild beasts, feral, if you will, and they got away. So realistically, I would say 2. I'm topping out at.
That's
3
fair.
So we're kind of close. I would say the appropriate answer is when you get uncomfortable in public telling people how many cats you have.
Yes.
Because there are people that probably are like 7 cats is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel very uncomfortable going and telling people I have 7 cats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like 2 might be too many to people. So my answer...
1 might be too many to people. I know some people that just straight up don't like cats or animals in general.
Yeah. So I'm like, if I do my philosophical answer, that's where I'm at, of kind of like that anxiety of I have to tell someone how many cats I now have. That's when I know it's like, all right.
To answer your question, Mother, it's subjective.
Oh, wow.
It is up to you.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yes, I will say that. But if you ran into me out in the streets and told me you had 4, I'd probably be like, all right. I mean, that might be too many.
I got to shout out my cats now. Shout out to Marco and Polo. Hope you guys are listening.
See, there you go. I think you got the appropriate amount.
They're perfect. Whether in amount or just themselves.
Yeah.
They are beautiful beings.
Bundles of joy.
Absolutely. The polo sheds like a motherfucker. Anyway, our last question comes from Katie. She asks, if you could do one thing and get away with it, what would it be? I would steal a whole movie theater. That's what I would do.
Steal a whole movie theater.
Yeah. Just uproot it, lift it up with a big old crane, just bring it next to me, put it in my house. And now it is my house. So there you go.
That's a good one.
My house.
I'm trying to think. It would probably be like a heist of some it'd be a heist of money.
That's what I thought. I thought of like bank robbery, but like I thought about the question more and it said if you could do anything and get away with it.
I know, but there isn't like the only thing I really want is money. So like that would be like the one thing I do is to get money. But if I do it and get away with it, I'm gonna do it kind of in a badass way.
Okay.
It'd be like one of those things where you're talking about that guy that got away with all that money that never got caught, and that would be me. So I don't want it to be something practical.
Who's the guy that jumped out of the plane?
DB Cooper.
Yeah, you'd be the DB Cooper of Muskegon.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like that would be like the sweetest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then I got my money and no one knows, but everyone's talking about it, and I know they're talking about it. So then I can be like, oh, that's fucking awesome. And I don't have to tell people that was me.
See, I gave my answer knowing that you would probably say, oh, I want money, therefore I'm going to pull off this sweet heist. And because you're good friends with me, you would naturally share that money with me, right?
No,
right? To further the pod.
You got your movie theater thing.
No, to further the pod, you got to give me a bit of your share so then we can develop it and then we can,
let's
get it out there more.
Let's see where your books are at after your movie theater idea and what you're pulling in for. I want to see how your marketing strategy goes and the type of demographics you're bringing in and what movie. You didn't even say how big your movie theater was. You just said a movie theater.
The sky's the limit.
1 and 2.
The sky's the limit.
You got anything you want. You pull in the Plaza 1 and 2.
The fucking red box down the street. I just call a movie theater.
Nope, that's it. If I can, and I just get movies rent free, but I do have to wait till they come out.
Yeah, I would steal a red box, but I mean I do have to put it back in like the next day.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you just don't have to pay for it, but you're still subject to those things.
Oh yeah, I still have to abide by the rules of the red box.
That's it. That's anything you could. It's like I do like structure.
Yeah. I really respect the foundation that red box is founded on. You know?
I just don't want to pay the $4 to rent it. So like that would be it. I just have it and then I'd give it back.
Yeah, I'm a citizen. I'm not a savage.
Yeah. Here I am. I got M40s. We're going in fucking just blazing. We're running out with bags of money. I'm just get to the van.
The fucking Walgreens is destroyed for no reason, but the red box is still standing.
There's two fucking helicopters that come in. Of course, we're sharing the same if we could do anything. So like, you'd be like, get away, and like somehow I distract them and like, up in flames, people looting and shit, and that red box just still, and like the camera just slowly pans in on it, and you like unaffected,
like go. It's like a huge montage of like me wrapping the chain around it, putting the lock on, strapping it to the car, and going, let's go.
There
and then I put it in drive and then hit the gas.
So
we're off.
Let's find the red box in front of the bank. That's what we'll do. Well, you could be attached to the heist.
You do your heist, I do my heist.
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be a great juxtaposition right there.
Oh yeah.
You trying to steal that thing and you're just by yourself and you got like the wheel cart thing. So you put it on the dolly, but you're in a truck so you can't quite lift it up. So the whole time I got everyone running around, cops everywhere, and you're just like looking around trying to figure out how to get the red box in the truck.
Or it's the opposite. I'm imagining the cops prioritize me for some reason and they're like, get on your knees, get on your hands and knees. And I'm like, and then meanwhile, right behind me, you guys sneak off with a comically huge bag of money that's leaking out.
It's like the Grinch Stole Christmas bag of money.
Yeah.
Like it's not in like different bags, it's just one duffel, like one bag, and it's like enormous.
The cops cuff me and they go, job well done, boys. And then you guys are just like sneaking off in the background.
But you get away with it, so naturally they see us and then they go, try to, and then you get out, you get your red box, and we all just convene right here again.
Yeah. There's a detective character that's like, damn it, this can't keep happening.
Yeah.
Slams his head on the table or his hand on the table.
And we'll never show the people that are in my party because they all have to perish because of the DB Cooper aspect.
Right.
So,
no loose ends.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
loose
And
ends.
we're not saying who took care of them or what took care of them. Obviously,
They're just taken care of.
Yeah. I'm kind of maybe the intro of Anyways. Yeah.
It's just a little idea that we're working on.
Anyways, that's what I would do.
That's what I would do too. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the questions to everyone who left some for us. We've got one more bit of business before we wrap up. Now, normally this is the part of the show where I would make a movie recommendation, and then we would go into our outro. But we have a special guest coming on for episode 46.
Hell yeah.
We're going to have Levi Hunter on the podcast, who, if you don't know who that is, he is Gideon's brother, who we've had on the show. And if you don't know who
that is, he's the one that did our music.
And if you don't know what that is, go to his Instagram. It's instagram.com/WakeRiseFall. He also has a YouTube page of the very same name. Shout out to his music.
Let's go.
And he gave us some films that he would like to talk about while he's on the show, and I think you're going to like what he picked. So I asked him, give us like 2 films to, for us to watch and discuss, helps pad out the time. And he said, well, I need a day to think about. This is a huge task for me. And I was like, okay.
Any 2 films to talk about with us.
I know. And he got with me a day later, and he said, okay, I'm thinking 90s sci-fi I want to talk about. So
2 films, 90s sci-fi? This is right up my fucking alley.
His recommendations are Galaxy Quest and The Fifth Element.
I already love them.
I knew you would enjoy those. Dude,
I just watched
picks.
Galaxy Quest. We watched it. We did movie night about 4 months ago. I had it on. There's a documentary about Galaxy Quest. Levi, if you're listening to this next Sunday, he might have already seen it. There's a documentary about Galaxy Quest out there that's very... it's not in the same ballpark as the Phantom Menace one, but it's still nicely done, and you get to learn a little bit more about it. Fifth Element's fucking... You've never seen Fifth Element, have you?
I've seen Fifth Element.
Oh, you have?
I haven't
never
seen Galaxy Quest.
That'll be the interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious how I'll feel about that one, but... Yeah, I'm excited to dive back into Fifth Element, check out these sci-fi movies. Yeah. So... If you guys don't want to be spoiled for Galaxy Quest or The Fifth Element.
Oh, shit, man. Half the audience has already seen these things. I hope so.
We'll see. Be sure to check these movies out anyway before episode 46 with Levi Hunter. So thank you guys very much for listening. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're also on our website, www.neoncrewpodcast.com. Stop by there, pick up a t-shirt on our Etsy page or our crew neck. We're nicely stocked up on those. I'm still waiting on a WWTHD shirt for you. I have it ordered. It's just still on the way. I was hoping it would get here before you showed up, but sadly not the case.
Well, we'll be able to rock shirts at the next recording.
True.
Yeah.
Be sure to follow our social medias. I am often active on Facebook and our YouTube community page. Thank you guys for 200 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We recently hit that not too long ago, so I'm very happy about that.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Holy shit, 200 people?
I know. That's like 10 classrooms worth of people or however much that is. I don't do math. Anyway.
That's 199 people that wouldn't make it with me on my heist.
That's true.
A morbid way of looking at that.
Loose ends.
Yeah.
Loose ends.
We love you guys.
That's 199 loose ends.
Now that's a 10 out of 10. Oh man, I can't believe I laughed that loud.
I'm gonna have to quiet that in the editing.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have my work cut out for me.
Yeah, another T-shirt idea right there.
There you go. Speaking of T-shirts, Mac, what do we say at the end of the episode?
WWTHD.
Bye, everyone.
Ah!